Yo guys, short message here before today's episode of Human Beings. This is another one where technology wasn't fully cooperative, but it's alright. In the end, the episode works, it's watchable, you can definitely hear the conversation well. I've been trying to be Mr. Smooth here, having the Zoom call on one device and recording on another, but for whatever reason it has not worked out well. This time the audio is good, but for whatever reason the video got stuck on me. Even though I could see the guest all the time, I could see on the other screen it going back and forth, and I am blurred while the guest is talking. So I don't know, something went wrong so that the guest's video wasn't captured. But here's what I'll do. Since this is another guest that's back on for a second time on the podcast, I'll take a short clip when they introduce themselves so you can kind of get a gist of what I was looking at as we were talking, because the setup of my guest was quite similar to last time. This is also someone that all they do on camera is not just to speak, right? So luckily enough, I could get some footage to overlay. Well, I guess maybe I'll keep some funny reaction shots in 240p of myself in, but I'll overlay most of my guest talk with training clips of him. I'm sorry, next time, third time's the charm. So it's a great episode regardless. I hope you'll enjoy this one as much as I did. Let's go.
So yeah, hello Theo's audience. I'm Faz. Now, just as a brief history of what I'm doing right now, I'm a full-time coach. I'm very fortunate in that I'm in a position where I can do that. I've been doing that full-time now for 5 years. It's going very well. I'm also a sponsored coach on Boost Camp. I have a YouTube with over 10,000 subscribers now, so that's been really good. I do consider myself, like Theo kindly said, I do consider myself an educator first and foremost. I've said, many of my audience will know, like I say a lot, I'm not a YouTuber, I'm a coach. I pride myself more on being a coach. And my whole process is I coach a lot of clients, I help a lot of clients, and then with that, I make videos. So the videos you see on my channel very much are coaching dilemmas and questions and solutions. So I think that what my audience likes about me is the videos are very relevant to what they tune into me for. And that it's actually one of the reasons why I don't tend to delve into more holistic topics, even though I would love to, but it's specifically what my audience looks for. But just in addition, I've been coaching now for 10 years. Initially 5 years, it was part-time. Now it's full-time the last 5 years. In a previous life, I was a school teacher. I taught computer science. That's my undergraduate degree was in computer science. And then I went on to get a teaching degree and a master's. And I started an EDD as well, but I never finished it. That's like an education doctorate. And I've been lifting for 25 years, 43, and yes, natural. So that's landed me where I am now. I was actually talking about it with my mother a couple of weekends ago. It's just so wild that this thing I started when I was 17 years old, and I was so passionate about, and I loved lifting for so long. Throughout university, throughout my jobs, even as a school teacher, teaching computer science and video games and stuff like that, it was always, right, I got to go lift later, I get to squat later, I get to bench, and being excited by my goals. And it's amazing that I can do that now and talk to people like you. So yeah, right now I'm living a dream. It's great.
Yo guys, Theo here on Common Sense. Welcome to another episode of Human Beings, the podcast where we're very interested in individuals. We're interested in all kinds of individuals, but somehow the people that's easiest for me to connect with seem to be fitness and natural bodybuilding kind of types, which is great. I enjoy those guys and girls, of course, but I'm going to try to widen this further down the line. But it's like clearly I'm trying hard here. It's clearly the type of person that's easiest for me to connect with. Today we have a previous guest revisiting again, Coach Faz. Hey man, how are you?
Theo, I'm great. How are you doing? Lovely to be invited on again. Always a pleasure to be able to talk with you. But no, thanks for inviting me on. I'm all good. I'm all good. The latest news at the moment, the reason why I'm so busy is we're buying a house. So the wife and I are kind of upgrading. We need a bigger property. So it's lovely. We've had an offer accepted for a place. So that means the next 2-3 months is going to be quite busy with moving, trying to get this place sold as well. But it's lovely. The new house is great. I've got I need a specific office space because right now my office is a room in the house. So this new house has got a summer house at the back of the garden, which I'm going to commandeer as my office space. It's lovely. It's a huge area. all insulated, all very nice and everything. Lovely garden, but in there I can fit in a couple of desks. I can fit in my work desk. I can fit in another desk which I can use for filming. Have a little kitchen space. I can just have my own kind of like man cave, but YouTube filming zone as well. So I'm very excited. That'll take a couple of months, but I was thinking about doing a tour for everyone because I don't really do a lot of personal stuff. So I thought maybe a tour will be nice and you guys can see the new house. So yeah, quite excited about that.
That's awesome. Really playing around in creator mode. And I don't just mean then as a creator on YouTube, but actually creating your living space in that sort of way. And I think many people would enjoy, I'm someone that's very personal in my content, and not everyone has to be like me, but I think many people would enjoy a little bit more of that in many people like you's content. So I think that would be really cool. Me, I have a little bit of a cold still. I know you were sick recently. I barely get sick anymore. It's only if I'm like in a depressive state or if I overextend myself. Right now, it's clearly the latter thing. So I'm doing better. But if you see me mute throughout this, it's because I blow my nose and cough and don't
Right.
want to
Yeah, it's okay.
interrupt you. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I can normally put my sickness down to somebody I've come in contact with, which is normally one of my best friends who I go to the gym with, and he has kids, and probably from his kids. So his kids are giving it to him, he's giving it to me, or from my brother and my sister-in-law who have also got kids, and I probably got it from them. So I can normally pinpoint it because otherwise I'm just in the house doing work and I very rarely venture out. So I don't really get a chance to get a call from anyone else. So I can usually pinpoint it to one or two people. Yeah.
Mm.
Damn
Yeah,
them.
of course, you have to be exposed to like a virus or something to get sick also. But I really made this connection that because I used to in my previous life, I used to get sick quite often, and
Okay.
I got sick often, and I got way worse symptoms. And these days, I don't get sick nearly as often. I can clearly pinpoint it to not even that thing. If I'm in a good place, I don't get sick when I'm around sick people for the most part. So it's always when I'm in some sort of deficit. But even then, now, like I got this, my very runny nose, and I don't know how you say that in English, but a rethosta, like an itchy, annoying cough. But it's like it peaked and it's almost left within like 2 days. So it's like a completely different story now. But speaking of that, you said that this person you're around that has kids, you know, I wanted to ask you more about that last time, but we didn't get into it. But so you don't have kids, that's right?
Yeah,
And
that's right,
we did talk a little bit for full transparency about that before we started recording. But I think it's an interesting topic, so I'd just like to hear you express that
yeah.
again.
So my wife and I met originally probably 12 years ago. We've been together for a good 10 years now. And the thing is, when you're older, romance is also has a practical side, right? So you do discuss very adult things. So
Mm.
we discussed the concept of having kids, and it's not something that either of us want. It's not something that I've ever
Sorry,
wanted.
just to interrupt you real quick. Like, so how old are you now, and when did you guys meet?
I'm 44 now. So we met when I was probably 33-ish, I think.
Oh,
And
my
that
age.
means my wife would have been in her, like, I think 28.
Mm.
She's 29. She's 4 years younger than me. Yeah, yeah. So, obviously initially we worked together. We were teachers at the last school that I taught in, actually. She still teaches there. And so, yeah, we had the conversation anyway, as we kind of, this is what happens when you're older and in kind of older, mature relationship. You kind of have to have these conversations, very boring conversations. And so one of the things we talked about was like having kids. And, we neither of us really have a great desire to have kids. She doesn't, neither do I. So it's not something that is in our heads, which I was saying before we got on, it's quite funny because whenever we go on holiday, so we'll go on like holiday slash vacation a couple times a year, and it just is reinforced in my mind. It sounds really bad, but whenever I hear sort of screaming kids, it's reinforced in my mind that I do not want kids. Like I like playing with my brother's kids. They're great. They're fantastic. Love them. But I also like to be able to give the kids back at the end of the day and say, here you go. Like you take care of that now. So I'm not. It's probably because if I was to pinpoint it, I think it's probably because I come from a large family. My siblings have all got a lot of kids. I was also a school teacher, so it's not something that I ever felt was missing in my life. And you know what? I was saying the other day in a video, like we're in a pretty good place, like me and my wife. You know, we're very happy with each other. We're happy with the life that we have created for ourselves, and the new house is going to be an extension of that. We don't really feel like there's anything missing. So even my mum asked me recently, you know, well, a few years ago now, she said, "What about kids now?" kind of thing. You're settled down, and I said to her the same thing. I said, "Look, we're actually pretty happy. So there's nothing missing. So right now, in terms of, you know, me and the wife, there's nothing really missing. But we have said, you know, if we wake up one day and we think, okay, you know what, like really do want kids, then we'll have the discussion. And maybe by that time, you know, maybe kids or adoption or something. But honestly, I don't see it. The more I live my life, I like the life that I built for myself, and I like my routine, my days. I get to go on stuff like this, which I enjoy, and I have a lot of freedom, which I really value. And same with the wife. And we've even thought about retirement. We kind of know what we want to do. We're probably going to retire over in Northern Ireland. My wife's family has a farm out there, a large sort of plot of land, so we're probably going to retire out there. And so at the moment, it's not on the radar. Everything is pretty much set. It's not really on the radar.
Mm. Yeah, and you know, I have so many. I think this is a really interesting conversation for people to listen to, because I told you that personally, I can pinpoint a moment very early in my life. Must be one of my earliest memories when I was with my dad, and it was talk about going to work and making money and stuff, and it just occurred to me that hey, oh, I'm supposed to do that one day, and I was like, oh, kind of looking forward to it. And how that was more of a genuine thing, like, oh, I want to do that. Then later, when, you know, I had a difficult life and I get a darker outlook on life, you know, and you try to find meaning somehow, now this turned into more of you know, this sort of biological thinking where you're trying to logically make sense of like, what are we doing here? Why am I here suffering, pretty much? And it's like the way to win the game is to spread your seed and replicate in that sort of way. And I think you mentioned before also how, you know, as a man, but as a person in general, that there are many things like thrown at you that you like should do, sort of. And you can talk more about that in a bit. But I realized that, you know, then this idea for me now it had nothing to do with any sort of genuine desire. It's like me trying, that's what I should do to win the game, sort of. And then when I, you know, hit rock bottom and changed the way I did, now I ended up with some sort of middle ground where it's like, yeah, I personally feel like that's something I'd really like to do, but not that it's something I must do in a forceful way like that. It should be a natural extension of you know, a loving relationship that I also don't think you can force. If you actually want a true relationship based on true connection like that, you cannot force it. You can be open, you can put yourself in situations so it's more likely that you run into this person, but you cannot, you know, look for someone like you're looking for someone to fill a position at a job or something. What was the last thing I wanted to say before I throw it back to you? Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much this, that I realized that, you know, what I think, it's like, I think also because of having a bit of a troubled childhood, it's like, it's a bit of a dream to like get to do things better for my kid like that. But I realized that it's not the only way to, you know, leave a legacy. As much as I even care about that, I don't care about it personally anymore. Only if my legacy helps people when I'm dead, you know, great. But I don't really care to be like famous after my death or something. But there are other ways to leave an influence and impact, spread your morals and values and ideas in this world. You can do that through other people. But I'll say this also. I think you can be fatherly. You can be fatherly without being a literal biological father. And that's what I would see a lot in a guy like you, that, you know, in the sphere you're in, you're like a bit older. I don't see you as an old guy, but you're older. You're like 11 years older than me then. And you're spreading the wisdom, knowledge sort of down to other people. And I also think there is this aspect of you. You've been a teacher, like you said. So it's not just this like, oh, I'm transferring fitness information to people. There's something else there. So yeah, that's where I'll throw it back to you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I do like that role. I like the role that I'm seen as in the community. With regards to what you said about like learning about who you are and what you want out of the world, something which has become apparent to me as I've been older and as I've gone through some good and bad life experiences is the role of hidden pressures and hidden expectations on everyone. I mean, I'm going to say men because I can only relate to men. You know, I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
So,
Most
but yeah,
men here listening anyway. So
yeah, right, yeah. So hidden pressures on men. I think. So I'll give you an example of this. So when it was 2020, and 2020 for me was a particularly bad year for various reasons. Nothing to do with the lockdowns. It was other stuff that was going on. The lockdowns didn't help, but it was other stuff that was going on, and so just a difficult time for me. And I
Do you
remember
want
in
to
that
mention
time,
what stuff that was?
it's a bit too personal. That's not something I want to talk
It's
about.
up to you, but I like people to be personal on this podcast, but I don't want to force anyone to talk about
Yeah.
anything that they don't want. So I'm saying that as a hint that if there's something you can say, please go ahead, but keep it at the level you are comfortable with, of course.
It's not something that I would want to discuss outside
Okay,
just my
sure,
family. So
sure.
I was just going through a hard time anyway. Everyone goes through their hard times and they have issues with whatever mental health and everything. So it was a difficult time for me. First time in my life I've ever had any of those kind of issues. But anyway, all throughout my life I'd been filling this role of basically big Faz in any relationship I'd had. Most of the relationships I had, women, I attracted a particular type of woman who was more dependent. And so as a
Mm,
result, I lived up to that role, which was a role bestowed upon me upon due to like society, who I was, my personality. I was very driven. I am very driven. And I think 2020 was the first time I really felt like I was struggling with my mental health. And it was a very difficult year for me, exceptionally, probably the most difficult year of my entire life. No, not probably, easily. And
mm,
that includes the year that my father passed away when I was 15 years old. So
mm,
it was a difficult time, but that was when I sort of reached out in a sense to my wife for support, as in to lean on her for support. And she was so good at providing that support for me. And it was actually the first time that I'd had that level of support from a female ever. And it was also one of the things that really solidified my love for her and our relationship. But the key thing is, to the point that I'm making, that moment when I sort of realized that, I didn't have to be like the man for the entire time, was the moment that I realized that I had that misconception my entire life. I had that level of expectation. And I think that a lot of men do. And I think it causes them to just rush headfirst into decisions, jobs, relationship situations where maybe they're not ready for it. Maybe they don't really want that out of life. And I wanted to tie that back into kind of what you were saying about like what you want out of life. I think it can be very difficult to be introspective unless something forces you to be introspective. I thought I was fairly introspective and clever and intelligent in my 30s, but it wasn't until I was presented with what were some very trying circumstances and having to move outside of my comfort zone when I realized actually my entire life there has been this hidden pressure for me to be like the man. And it was actually quite stressful. And I really needed some support. I'm not saying I'm still the same guy. I'm still a very, very driven guy. And that sometimes is to my detriment in terms of the work that I do and the type of personality that I have. But still, what I can rely on in safety is in times of need. If there ever is again, then I know I can rely on my wife for these things. And that just opened up this idea that, you know what, Faz, maybe you can just back off a little bit. But I wouldn't have realized that. And I think there are a lot of hidden pressures in society which force men into certain decisions and areas which they maybe just do so quite passively. I think a lot of people live very passively, and although they appear to want to be thoughtful, they don't necessarily think that much. And I would say I'm humble enough to think that in another 10 years' time, I'll probably look back at what I'm saying now in this podcast. I think that was naive. So I think as long as we have that continued evaluation and evolution, it's probably a good thing. But ultimately, I don't think a lot of people do really.
mm. Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing all of that. It's very interesting. It makes me think of many things. I can relate to a lot of it, even though we have quite a different background. But this thing with thinking you need to be the man, sort of. What I think is interesting is that I think there's a balance with it, because I think you should feel that way. You should feel like, I'm a man. I need to be the leader of myself first and foremost, but then for the people in my life that I can help, and so that can both be family, friends, but also through profession, right? But also at the same time knowing that being the man doesn't mean being a god, because I think that's sometimes the pressure put on ourselves. Like I realize similar things about myself, and I still do that. I have this sort of view of myself that, yeah, no, I am more capable than most people. And it's not like, oh, I feel so great from this. Like, I guess I do. I guess I feel good from that. But it's also, yeah, I have this certain greater powers, if you will. So I have to. It's my responsibility to use them to help people. And I shouldn't expect or need as much myself. But that can sometimes translate into, I think I don't need any help. Or if I ever struggle, it's wrong, it's shameful, it's dirty, you know. So
Yeah.
when you can have that balance with like, yeah, I want to be the best I can. I want to, as much as possible, be able to handle things for myself. But I also realize I'm just a human being like everyone else. And when things are tougher for me, that's okay. If I feel like I need some support, that's okay. Um, yeah, man, there was something else there that I wanted to relate to. I guess just out of curiosity, yeah, well, okay, so this that you said, like in another 10 years, I might look back at this and feel like what I said now was naive. It's funny, I said to someone only recently that in my own introspective process, even ever since I was little, like I would think like, oh, I used to think I knew everything, like, oh, I was so stupid because now I know everything.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and I kept thinking this way, having this sort of insight for myself every year or two. And then at some point in my teens, I just realized that, hey, it seems like this is a thing that I think I have it all figured out, but then it always turns out that I don't. So even ever since I've sort of embraced that yeah, you know, I keep growing. I've refined my perspective, but it's not like you're ever done. And one thing you said, I'm still the same guy. That's what I've come to kind of realize, that our sort of core we cannot change, but the way that our mechanisms, how we choose to deal with that and express that in the world, we can improve upon. When we realize that, hey, even if we started here, maybe I started heading a bit too much here, I need to come back and find a better path forward like that. No, but the last thing I guess I just wanted to ask you, do you, this, your feeling, this like, oh, I need to be the man and always be on top of everything. Do you know anything where that comes from? Because that's what I've tried to figure out always. Like, why am I like this? Why do I have this belief to begin with?
I think for me it's genetic. I think all I have two brothers, the three of us, and we're all like that. Like
Hmm.
we're all just ridiculously like that. And it's like my elder brother, he's a big guy in IT. He works in London. And he's like a manager of a manager of a manager. He works very high up in IT, and we all kind of have that personality. We always have since we were younger. And I think it's for us, it's probably just passed down from my father because he was like that as well. Just that very sort of aggressive, determined. I'm trying not to use the word alpha because it's really cringe, but like that aggressive kind of determined personality, which I'm better at controlling now the older I am. But when I was in my 20s and 30s, it was full on dedicated to powerlifting. That was like the mode of all my like recklessness, feelings of both power and insecurity at the same time. That was the outcome where I wanted to feel the most powerful. So I think for us, for I'm speaking about me and my brothers, I think it was all genetic because we're all the same. We're all exactly the same.
Hmm.
In our relationships, we're all the same too. We have the same role and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, there was a phrase when you were speaking earlier. There was a phrase that comes to mind. This is from the perspective of somebody who is like me and he is quite driven. And I think one thing you said, which was really good, was that should be the role. I think you're right. I think that should be the role of men. For me, anyway, that's the role I feel comfortable with. I don't necessarily agree that should be the role for all men because I think some men aren't, like that. But I do agree that it's a good role for men. But one phrase that comes to mind is I see it on social media all the time, and it's be kind to others but strict to yourself,
Hmm.
something like that. And I remember hearing that, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't like that phrase at all. But bear in mind, this is coming from the perspective of someone who has been very hard on himself in the past,
Hmm.
probably landed
Yeah.
himself into trouble. And I think that's just a disastrous thing. I think it sounds good on paper because, like, oh, it's almost self-aggrandizing. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm such a martyr. I'm a martyr to the people around me. Like they're all doing great, and like I'm keeping them comfortable, but I'm this suffering victim. And I just think that's such a horrendous attitude because if you are really that sort of man who puts a lot of the pressure, who takes a lot of the pressure on his shoulder, that's an awful maxim to live by because you're just going to burn out, And that when you need actual help, you're not going to have anyone there to support you and to help you. And I think that can be very disastrous for guys. So I don't like that phrase. And I think coming from the perspective of somebody who already is that in that kind of role, I think they need to learn to be more kind to themselves. I think otherwise, like I have a friend of mine who's not like that at all. He has a different type of relationship with his wife, and she kind of takes the lead in more things. And for him, maybe he needs to have more of that kind of balance. But I think it kind of depends on the personality types. But yeah, different
Hmm.
pressures.
Oh yeah, man. It's always about balance. And first, just quick note about this with genetic.
Mm,
I think a lot in terms of trauma and ancestral trauma. And the thing is that that's not only about environment. It's like I realized that the genetics and environment kind of go hand in hand because like your genetics, as in your parents, they are literally your environment also when you're growing up. And
mm,
some things do get stored actually in the DNA that were, I know that I was born with like extreme empathy and a fear of abandonment because certain things I remember from when I was little. But then, for instance, my experience with my autistic brother, when I'm sort of always told that pretty much not these words, but you have to be stronger. You have to sort of just take it
yeah.
because he doesn't. That's more of a pure environment thing, right? No, but what you said there, it's always about balance. This would be kind to others and strict on yourself. If I had to rephrase it, I would say be kinder to others and stricter on yourself, but it's relative. And what I've noticed is I think a lot in terms of masculine and feminine. And again, like I said when I was talking to Jeffrey last time, not in some sort of ideological way, neither like a feminist thing or the opposite, like red pill manosphere. Just this is the energetic balance I see in this world, and it's energies that exist within us, like within men and women also. And so what I say, for instance, that these days, for instance, many guys can be a little bit too soft outwardly, but often are way too hard on themselves on the inside. They speak way too strict, like you said. And so many guys that I start working with, just because I sometimes talk away in my videos to sort of general person, and it's not fake, but it's still like playing into a certain
Mm.
part of my character, right? It's like they expect me to be this like sergeant, but then I notice so quickly that hey, you're already way too hard on yourself. You don't need more of that from me. You actually need me to be a bit kinder and point out, hey, see, you're doing well with this and this and this. It's always about balance. And then the last thing I would say is that that not all men are cut out to be like this, or however you put that. What I mean by that is like it's on different levels. I think at the very least you need to be the leader of yourself. And then how much that extends into other people around you might be a different question. But this is very interesting, man. I didn't expect us to go so deep into this, but I'm loving it. But I want to move on to some things. But if you just have any more thoughts on this.
With regards to sort of being a strong person and a strong leader and it's being strict on yourself, I do think that's important. I mean, if I can just share a perspective from somebody who's in his 40s and has friends in their 40s,
Okay.
the men that I know who are in their 40s who don't have a relatively disciplined life where they have some sort of hobbies and interests, whether it's even if it's just gardening, it doesn't have to be lifting weights, they tend to get quite dysfunctional. A lot of what distracts me during my day is my work, the goals that I've got for work, for mostly for work these days, but for work and maybe gym and stuff like that, but generally for work. So I keep myself very busy. I'm very forward-minded. I have stuff to do. Now, at my age, you are afforded a degree of freedom. Well, ideally you should be if life has gone well, you've earned some money, you've got some backing behind you, and you can settle more into your own personality of what you want. What I've seen in, say, ex-work colleagues of mine, so guys who I used to work with 10 years ago, they get dysfunctional, Theo. Like if they don't have this self-discipline, they get dysfunctional. They start to pull, lean into alcohol. They start to lean into just alcohol, or like some of them cheat on their wives, or there's like even just a aggrandizing of themselves, like and a wish that things almost like an excusing the way things are based on what they would like. Like I'll give you an example. I got one friend of mine. I don't really see him anymore because quite frankly, I just don't like what he's become. But the last couple of years that we would meet up every now and again, like friends of us, all like ex-school teacher friends of ours, and we'd meet up and we'd be sitting down, he'd start to get drunk and he'd always go on and on about how he should be in a different position at work. Like he should be promoted, he should be the boss and he could do the better job. But the reality isn't there because he didn't put the work in, because he wasn't committed to the job, he wasn't committed to the position. And so he has this sense of regret now. And the only way he can deal with that regret, because he has a reputation at work of being kind of a loser, and the only way he can deal with that is by creating this narrative that the world is against him and actually he would do a much better job. I mean, the funny thing is though, I know what he's like. I know what he's like at work, and he's a lazy SOB, and that's the reason that he didn't get promoted ever, because he's just useless. So he creates a narrative, and to back up that narrative, he has to lie and he also has to act out, and he has to create. Yeah, and I just think it just gets people dysfunctional. He gets more and more drunk, he gets more and more outrageous, and that's kind of his way of exerting power on the environment. And I see people like that all the time, especially my age. They get dysfunctional. I don't think I know I don't think I know one man outside my current friendship circle who are all great who isn't dysfunctional in some kind of way. Either gambles, leans too far into alcohol, cheats on his wife, and is just dysfunctional in any number of ways. And I don't think those guys can actually be happy, because how could you be if your solace is alcohol or another woman's embrace? Like, that makes no sense to me. So, like, the friends I have, I keep a very small friendship circle because they're all like me. They all have that drive, that need to accomplish goals, and those goals keep us centered on a path which is honest, and make sure that I don't lean into alcoholism or look at other women and all that kind of stuff in that kind of way. And I think as you get older and older, I think it is important to have that balance. But I want to say, in support of being that driven man with goals, there's a lot to be said for that the older you get, because there are so many distractions when life gets to the point where it's kind of easy. Like, if I didn't have goals now for the business, and if I wasn't the man I am now, yeah, sometimes it leads to burnout and stuff, but ultimately it makes me a better, happier person because I'm achieving things. And obviously my wife respects my accomplishments, she respects what I bring to the table. And it's just a nice marriage in that sense, because I get what I need. I'm able to exert my desires onto the world of what I want to accomplish and achieve, and she supports me in that. And I think without that, I just see it so often, Theo. They just get, the best word I can use is they get dysfunctional. I don't like men like that because I can't trust them. I don't know what they're going to do next week and get drunk and start throwing alcohol at each other and or say dumb things in public. You can't trust them.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I love that entire tangent. I get like goosebumps when you're talking about that, because I'm sure you're right that certain men, that I don't know how I should put it even, but that they just kind of sort of gradually end up there slowly when when they didn't do anything, had goals earlier in their life. Because the kind of person you're describing, honestly, is the way I was from like my teens, but it's because that's why I, in a sense, consider myself the lucky one, that instead of slowly ending up here, I got to a pretty low place, just, not feeling good about myself and the world, not really knowing what to do, just escaping life through vices, like I always say, right? That's the only thing you can come up with. And like I said earlier, this vague idea of biological reproduction, that's something like good in and of itself, like that. And then I hit rock bottom and I finally found something different. But of course, to different degrees, because some guys, they can be like half there where you're talking about, and half have something going. I see often the kinds of guys that I work with, they either already have a family and then they just neglect themselves completely for family and or work, which often go hand in hand. Or maybe they have this one area that they're actually really successful with their business, but everything else is just like, So yeah, man. And what you talked about, I think many times, because I recognize that in my old self also, it's like you're talking about the potential that you have, as if it's like you just deserve to get all this stuff now, because well, I know what I could do if only this and that, if only these things, all these things outside of me, were different, then I would be like the king, pretty much. It's like, well, yeah, the king doesn't just become the king because of his potential. He has to actually walk the path. And you may have potential. Like, back in the day, I was a smart guy in many ways, but I was also immature in many ways, and I was weak in many ways. So, yeah, man, that was just, it was really interesting to listen to. Again, I got to see if I can turn the leaf to some other topics, but we keep getting into good stuff. So I'm just like, Eddie Moore.
I'll give you one more example before we move on. So about in 2022, there was a guy that I used to know from one of the OG gyms that we used to go to. Anybody who's listening to this from my hometown will know which gym I'm talking about. It was like the best gym. So anyway, we used to train there. We're talking probably 10, 12 years ago. And since that time, obviously, I've been doing the coaching thing. My exposure on the global scene has kind of, I'm still nobody, but yeah, at least I'm a recognizable nobody. But anyway, he started to spam me in my DMs on Instagram, just essentially just talking shit. Like, who are you? who are you to make videos about talking training? You know nothing about training. So he knew me from back then. And I think it goes back to what you're saying about expertise. The king doesn't become the king by just sitting on his bum. You know, I've had 10 years of practice daily, doing the job, and over a period of time working two jobs, working this job in the evening, working a regular 9 to 5 in the daytime, being extremely busy, grafting. You know how hard it is. You know, you're as an entrepreneur, you're grafting all the time, 7 days a week. There's no really days off, long hours. And he's sat there thinking, who the hell are you? Because he remembers me from before I was a coach. You remember when I was a lifter in my early 30s? He was like, well, who are you now? What are you to talk? And he tried to sort of bait me into having some kind of actual physical fight. He wanted to have a physical fight to try and think, well, you know, let's come to train with us and let me show you how to train, kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, you're absolutely insane. And the guy's doesn't have a job. I know that for a fact. He had some potential in football, soccer, when he was younger, threw that away, ended up getting on a police charge about something to do with touching women in town at a nightclub. Then has just been an alcoholic for the last 10 years and lives with his parents. And he's literally that basement dwelling hater. And that's the guy. Like, people like that are out there, and I think people like that are in our YouTube comments as well. Like, for the most part, but I think that wasted potential, his anger directed towards me, is mostly just self-hatred, which he's directing out to the world.
Oh yeah, completely, man. It's like this is the thing that I've been observing a lot this year. That actually had me a bit lower at the start of the year, and it's not just about what I personally deal with. It's just seeing this in humanity. You know, this unfortunate trait that when you're not in a good place and you see someone doing way better than you, instead of being like, man, like, oh, I remember Faz from back in the day and he's done all of this. Wow, maybe I can do something different. You know, it's like, let's find stuff to attack. So I can try to, instead of lifting myself up, I try to pull Faz down so I feel better, which doesn't work either. No one ever, you might feel powerful in the moment writing this angry message or whatever it is a person would do. But of course, it doesn't change anything about the facts. And yeah, man, I get a lot of this both on social media, but in real life, not as directly, because that's the part that, you talked about that last time about how people's dysfunction show when there's some kind of layer of protection, like being anonymous and having a screen between. But I've heard a lot, like behind my back, what people say and think about me, because I used to be a certain way, right? But it's funny, though, many of these people, they come around later. And do you know what I realized, too? That this self-hatred you talk about, it's also, it often presents as hate towards you. But then I always find out, like, the hater is actually the person that kind of admires and loves me the most. They're just in denial of it. Because I have people that I now get along with great that I just knew for a time. I heard what they said about me. And then maybe I run into them and get the chance to just show, like, hey, I'm not always my, like, YouTube personality. I'm just like a guy that is happy to see you and wonder, how are you doing? You know? So, yeah, man, it's highly interesting. And for me, because I've noticed this throughout my entire life, that it seems like no matter what I do, I just trigger people. Even when I try to be the nicest I can, there's always someone that has a problem. So I kind of decide, like, well, that seems to be my role. Just lean into it. Just poke people right where it hurts and even tell them, see, it's because I remind you of something. Like, just admit the truth. And they will never do it right in the moment. But this is how I get these people later on come around, either just acting in a different way, or actually every once in a while admit that, you know what, I was a jerk. You were right about what you said.
Do you get recognized from your social media in real life? Are you at that point now?
It actually happened recently that some guys I didn't know at all, but they were super positive. They were in the outdoor gym that I usually train in, shirtless and training. I'm like, yeah, these are my guys, you know. I mean, it happens every once in a while, but what I'm talking about, people from real life, it's mostly, people that know me and have seen my stuff online, that kind of way, yeah.
I'm getting it more and more now, and I'm like I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression. I'm like a Z-list celebrity, like way below that, but not even that. But I had the biggest. I'm getting it more and more. I'm getting more and more that people see me on YouTube before they see me in real life, in person, and that's pretty cool. But I had the biggest aura moment ever, like about 3 months ago. So there's this guy that I speak to every now and again. He's actually an ex Great British judo champion. Really nice guy, super friendly. He owns a series of jewelry shops in Birmingham now. But anyway, we were talking, and he doesn't really know what I do, and we just kind of talk as lifters, right? Really nice guy. We were talking, and such a random moment. Some random dude comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you're Faz List. I love you on YouTube," and starts walking off. And I just handle it very humbly. I was like, "Hey, dude, thank you very much. Really appreciate it." And I carry on talking to my friend. And about 30 seconds later, he just stops me and he goes, "Hold on." What the hell was that? So it's like that was the biggest aura moment ever. And I had to explain to him like this is what I do. But I was kind of surprised at the recognition. But it seems to be happening more often now, which is nice. I think where I am, particularly the gym that I go to, I think a lot of those lifters are very concerned about social media. So as a result, they may have seen me. Like I've got a house cleaner that comes every Wednesday, and she's seen me on YouTube before she met me as well, which is kind of weird. So yeah, but like I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression. I'm not getting too big for my boots here, but it's just been more and more often, which is it takes some getting used to. You know, the first time it happened, I was at old gym a couple of years back, and there was a guy. He just kept looking at me for a number of weeks, and it was like because it had never happened to me before. By the end of the third or fourth week, I was like, who is this guy that keeps looking at me? I'm gonna say something to him. Like, God damn it, what's he looking at? What are you looking at? By about the third or fourth week, he just kept staring at me. I was gonna go up to him and go, right, what is your problem? And he came up to me and I thought, right, that's it. Right, let's get it on you. But he said, hey, I listened to your podcast. I really like it. So I was like, okay. Thankfully, I didn't punch him in the face.
Yeah,
So,
man. It's this about, I mean, I don't think you have to like excuse or downplay your level of fame or something. It's like it's kind of interesting how it works these days, because even when I was just a kid, it was way more that certain people are on big screens that we others watch, and it's a very small group and they are like very famous. But now with social media and this, it can be so many different levels. You can have 100 followers, 1,000, 10,000, up to millions, right? So there are many different levels to that.
I
No, but
think
yeah, no.
I think the Alex Leonidas podcast was quite good for that because he's very big in the space.
Yeah, yeah.
I think all of a sudden people thought, oh, holy crap, it's that guy. I know him. Kind of thing.
Mm. I would love to get on Alex, but I guess I haven't gained his trust enough yet. He said he was going to come on my podcast, but then when I try to reach him, it's really difficult to reach. Like he said it on the live stream, but we'll see. We'll see. Um,
I really like Alex. I think he's awesome. Really good for the space. A great ambassador for natural
mm,
bodybuilding. Super nice guy. I speak to him every now and again. I like to, like I do with you. I drop people messages every now and again on Instagram. Like I
mm,
drop Jeffrey a message. Paris basement bodybuilding. I drop them all a
yeah,
message every like 6 months or so, just to say hello and check up on them and make sure people are okay. But I do the same with Alex as well, and he always replies. Maybe he replies a
mm,
bit later, but he always replies. But super
mm,
nice guy. Yeah, yeah.
mm. I think, and I don't feel bad about it, but I think some of these guys don't know quite where to put me. Like, is this guy natural bodybuilding guy, or like, because I do some things that are like very unrelated, and I know I sometimes use a bit of provocation and stuff. My point is that if you don't know me personally and you see some things on the surface, I could see how you could think like, oh, I don't think this is the guy for me. And I don't think it's black and white either. I think sometimes people need some time to figure it out, and that's fine. But that's something I liked about, well, you also, but Jeffrey, for instance, I feel like he just makes it like, oh, I like this guy. Oh, I'll come on his podcast. Like that's something I told Jeffrey on the last podcast, that something I like about him is that I feel like he, and I think this about you also, that he really goes just off of what he thinks is right in the end, and doesn't think about like, oh, what will anyone else think, or oh, am I associated with something I don't want to, or something like that. And again, I think it's understandable. You have to keep certain, like sometimes, let's say you just connect with someone, you don't look into them, and then later you find out something like, oh, I is associated with this. Like, okay, I would have done it differently if I didn't know. No, but so it's fine. I tried to reach out to Basement Bodybuilding and Alex Leonidas. Alex, he said he saw my podcast with Jeffrey, so he might also just be busy. Basement Bodybuilding, I have not gotten a hold of. But I've seen me mentioned in his comments. Paris, he keeps responding to me. I think he wants to come on the podcast, but I think he's stressed. I think he's doing a lot. And he keeps saying like, oh, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to get back to you. And
I think
then,
I
yeah.
think Paris is just insanely busy. Like I think,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. Like he's
Oh, yeah.
so talented, so charismatic. Like he's fantastic. He was one of the first guys who would show up on my DMs, who show him up my YouTube comments when I first
Mm,
started the channel. And he was so supportive, and he still is. He still likes all my stories on Instagram and everything. He's
mhm,
super nice guy. Like he is. he's very, very down to earth and relatable, like super nice guy. They all, a lot of them are. It's great. So
Yeah, no, but I like all these guys. I'm just, this is the way, my podcast is called Human Beings. I just find it very interesting to think about these things, not from a like, he's stupid because he doesn't understand this about me or something. It's just like, I'm just sharing what I think about how things are right now, and I think it's understandable. It's just like, well, I hope I manage to gain the trust eventually. Oh,
I'm sure.
Paris,
I'm sure
yeah,
you will. I think it's just a case of people are busy. That's all. I wouldn't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm gonna try to like someone like Paris, and we can move on for this soon. But my sense is he wants to come on, but he's really, really busy. Like things have really been happening for him, and I'm really happy for his sake. Like this app I saw that he got now, like awesome. So I think I'll try to schedule something further down the line. So it's like, take your time. I just want to get to talk to you because one thing, it's not just about me. It's like these guys all get brought up to me all the time. Like, oh, you should have them on the podcast. I'm like, I'm trying, guys,
Yes.
trying my best here.
I'm going to start bringing those back up on my channel as well. I'm going to start having guests in. So not yet because I'm busy with work, but also I'm trying to finish off a book that I'm writing. So
Mm,
hopefully by the end of the year, fingers crossed, it's about halfway written now. But yeah, I have a list of people that I want to get on for me as well because I've not done it in a long time. I did it when I
mm,
first started doing YouTube, but I'd love to get people on. And the way that I like to do it is kind of very focused onto a topic. So like I was recently on Ben Yanis's podcast, really cool guy, really good on biomechanics and everything. And we had a nice chat about specific things, and like it was all very numbered. I did the same thing with Jonathan Warren as well. We had a plan, we had it all fairly structured. And I think for my channel, that's the kind of vibe that my audience would go for.
mm,
I know with yours is a bit more freestyle, that suits your audience. I think for mine, I'll do it that way. And that's what I want to do. So like getting you on, talk some specific things about what you do and like have it written down so people can follow it
mm.
really nicely. So that's because it's just my brain is how it works. But
Sure.
so eventually, maybe not this year, maybe next year, I'm going to start rolling out invites for podcasts and stuff. Yeah.
Mm. Awesome. Looking forward to that. Yeah, man. It's of course we can have different formats. I would maybe let's say I want to bring someone on first. Like let's say Atlas Power Shrug and the fasting. I mean, we can talk about fasting. You also do fasting, but
Yeah, yeah.
for instance, I could totally see myself like, oh, let's do a video when we just go through these things
Mm.
about fasting. But yeah, for this podcast, it's very much like just open discussion. I have some points to get back to, but I also want to show the side of a person that maybe they don't always show in their content.
Mm.
I think that's the cool thing. I'm always so interested in the person behind the thing because that's my thing with holistic bodybuilding, right? It's like even the body. It's not about the body. It's about the man that manifests the body, the internal. The external is a manifestation of the internal. Same thing about the work, of course. So yeah,
I,
man.
I
Yeah.
personally do like that because I like one of the reasons I like coming on your podcast is I don't get to talk in this way about this
Mm,
thing, my YouTube, because I don't know how my audience would react to it. Because generally, I'm very hyper focused on one thing and I'm building my account. And I think until I get to maybe 100K or whatever, I don't think I'm going to branch out very much. So this allows me to speak like a human being, like the
mhm.
point of the podcast, which is nice. So,
Yeah, no, I'm glad you like that. And yeah, it's like, do what you like to do. But I think your audience would appreciate it. Then it's like you don't have to start making that your thing. But it could be like when it occurs to you, like, hey, I have another kind of thing. I feel like sharing a bit more spontaneously, just some thoughts or something. Like, why not? No, but now I kept saying that I want to move on to something, but then it's like I want it to be free flowing. And I guess what we could do is stick a bit more to these topics that aren't necessarily about training and fitness, and then move on a bit more to them. So one thing I wanted to bring up that is we already started talking about it a little bit, but Faz has been very nice in like looking out for me. That I don't get too affected by like negativity, hate comments, and such. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about that with you. Like I can share some things also, but like your channel has grown. You get quite a bit of views. I'm sure there must be people that don't really follow you that find their way to your videos quite often too. So how do you feel with dealing, not even just hate, honestly, because that's been a thing for me, speaking about having to be the man, when you suddenly have a larger following, feel like you have more eyes on you. It's not just getting negativity. In many ways, it's even worse. Sometimes I feel like, oh, all these people that are relying on me, I have these like big shoes to feel, sort of. So just how has that experience been for you?
It's been wild, honestly. I do have to just get on my knees and thank, whoever like up there for it's been amazing. It's been the support has been absolutely fantastic. The growth of the channel has been amazing. It's been really good. The positivity in the comments, you see it like every single time I post. It's insane. It's so good. I think what I will say is navigating some of the more negative stuff, I would say has probably caught me off guard. I think
Hmm.
that's probably the best way to put it. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. There've actually been content creators, other content creators, who have baited me in my own video comments
Hmm.
just to have arguments and then follow me around in other people's videos and write negative comments about me based on interaction. So you have these guys who give this outward impression of being all like together and happy and stuff who are just absolutely mental. And it's not just the occasional commenters who, they all leave their comments on a Friday and Saturday night because that's when they're bored and they get online and start typing stuff. It's always that way. They think they've got a killer comment, but it's to you, you just think, oh, another comment on Friday and Saturday. But yeah, like I think what I will say is navigating that, and it is a very small percentage, but navigating that has probably caught me off guard. And I think it's quite a sad thing because ultimately you start to realize why, as content creators grow to be larger and get more of an audience, they start to interact with the audience less and less because
Yeah.
you don't often know. You don't often know. Like somebody could ask a question and it could appear to be a genuine question, which is what happened with this content creator who baited me. You give them an answer, and then because they know they've got your attention, they just start digging the knife in with the
Hmm.
insults and the personal jabs, just trying to pull you down. And you think to yourself, like, what are you doing, bro? You're a content creator like me. You know how difficult it is. You give the outward impression of being all chill and everything, and you're an absolute psychopath inside. And like that's honestly what I see with there's been three. I'm not going to name the names, but there's been
I'm
three.
curious, but I'm not gonna make you say it.
I'll tell you off air.
Yeah.
There's been three who I've just had bad experiences with, and that's alongside a small selection of just regular commenters who I don't block anyone. I did in the past, but I've basically unblocked everyone, and it's a big free for
Mm.
all now. So, but I just think it's a shame because you get the obvious trolls are the obvious trolls, but you get so but they evolve. It's like a virus. They evolve. They realize that if there's an obvious comment, no one's going to pay attention to it. They'll just think he's a crazy person. So they make these baity comments. They try and bait you into a conversation, and then they turn on you, and you realize that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of large content creators just don't bother replying. And it's a shame because it just ruins it for everyone. So
Mm.
that I did say probably caught me off guard. So now I just tend to avoid, and it's a shame because I like to interact with people. I like to teach them. I like to make sure we're on the same page. I like to explain concepts like, okay, maybe they didn't understand that in a video.
Mm.
Maybe I'll explain. But like I'll look at like Peter Kacharian, I'll look at his comment section, and he doesn't respond to a lot of things anymore, and rightfully so because he's a huge account. I think Alex Leonidas is very good. He still responds to quite a lot, but God bless him. I mean, I don't know how he does it. So, and there's a few others who've started to just really slow down on the number of likes and comments and replies and stuff. And kind of unfortunately, that's kind of the direction I'm moving towards, which is such a shame because it's just not right. But that was why I checked up on you.
Mm.
I think it was a couple of months ago. For the audience who don't know, um, I sent Theo a message just to ask him how he was doing because he was quite active on. You were quite active on social media, just like dealing with troll accounts and stuff. Like
Mm.
I know, just dealing with the trolls for me, for the way that I am, just trying to get into a discussion with them, it ends up putting you in a bad mood. And like I didn't want, and I know you're different to me. Maybe you're more like you're better at dealing with that kind of stuff. But just in case, I sent Theo a message just asking if he was okay. But yeah, I think like I have tried to engage in the past, and it does have an effect on me. So nowadays, I just try and just not bother anymore. And it's yeah, they're so it's like they think they have this killer message, and it's always on a Friday or Saturday night because they finished their week of work, which they at a job that they hate. So they're on YouTube, right? I'm going to write this really like cutting, insightful comment, and they think they've made a really good point, but you just think, looking at them, you just think, wow, that's just another unhinged person on a Friday and Saturday night amongst a sea of very positive people, but one or two who are just a little bit literally psychopathic. And unfortunately, sometimes they're actual content creators
Mm.
who never grew up, even despite a modicum of success.
Mm. Yeah, man. Like, I think all of that was very interesting and good takes on a lot of stuff. It's like I completely agree with you. Like, speaking of this about fame, like even with a modest level of fame that maybe you and I have now, I've noticed just how much this is a thing with people telling you stuff or talking about you, and it has really made me more sympathetic both to like larger content creators, but also just like kind of celebrities. I can't imagine, think of, paparazzi, the media that, always wants, they're going to lie about you, make up stuff, and a lot of people are just going to believe it. And just as a little person, no matter how like confident and good self-esteem you have, it's like, it's intense to have to deal with. I think sometimes what I've had to deal with is intense. So I can't imagine just on that level. And again, it's not just about negativity. It's just this like feeling like so many eyes are on you and there are some things to live up to. And yeah, man, I think, what I wanted to bring up that we talked about it a little bit last time also about dealing with that kind of thing, more on the negative side. And what I say is that my strategy, my impulse with almost whatever I get is to respond, whether it's positive or negative.
Right.
It really has to be something that's so neutral that I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I have no response for this. But
Yeah.
that's my natural inclination. However, like I told you when we were talking about it, because I'm a person that goes a bit up and down in moods, even if it isn't like drastic, like completely depressed on the bottom or something like that. It's still something, a little bit of a cycle I've observed with myself. This on self knowledge again. And I noticed that for me, it's all about knowing where the boundaries on how much to do this thing is.
Mhm.
So during those periods, I will look at comments less overall and respond way less because I just feel the intensity of it more. Like I will put out the video, not watch anything. And then when I get like a moment when I'm like, I feel a bit more energetic, I'll go and probably just like heart the comments that I like and don't do much more. While when I'm higher, I'm like, I'm happy to engage with a ton of people. And I'm so extroverted. It's like, I don't even have to put much time into making law. It's just, it just comes, you know. And I sort of use this. First of all, I'm the crazy kind of coach that I think I can change a lot of people. And I, from what I've learned is that the people that's so-called hate you, that's actually their way of expressing love to you. They're so jealous of you. They want to be so many things that you are. So I know that most of them are not going to come around immediately in this moment. But first of all, I would never spend the time I do on certain people if it wasn't public, that I know that other people can see the points being made. I would never do it like individually. And I don't expect anyone to immediately be like, oh, you know what, you're right, Theo. It's for later in that case. And like I say, both in real life and online, I see this thing happen later. That the same person is back and acting differently. But I kept asking myself all the time though, because I got a new kind of hater from doing this, that I would engage a lot with the comments. The hater that hates that I do that, and it really made me question, what are my motives? Because I am a guy like this. I don't want to be on an ego trip, deceiving myself that I'm doing something other than what I am. Because in my head, even if it's negative, even if I'm being a bit aggressive with my tone, no, I'm actually, this is for the great, I'm not just trying to defend my ego. This is some kind of teaching. But of course, I notice that, well, sometimes I get triggered also. Sometimes I can fall into this, like I just need to beat this other person. So I kept listening to all the input, and I realized this, that, this person that thinks I look like insecure when I do this and that, it's like, it's because they're afraid of being assertive. They are afraid of standing up for themselves. They're afraid of being angry. A lot of people have been taught that anger is like this dirty emotion, which it can be very bad when it's unchecked. But anger is really an emotion to show you where your boundaries lie. When someone crosses your boundaries and when they're being an asshole, you have all the right in the world to be angry if you want to. So to round this tangent off, I saw it as I kind of, when I noticed that, okay, I feel the intensity, and I do want to keep doing YouTube and that, so this is something I'm going to have to deal with. And I have a certain way. I would really, really prefer to not have to ignore everything. I don't feel good about that. So I'm like, well, I'll just lean into it. I'll be provocative. I'll just pull the haters out with certain titles and stuff. And then I see it as a sort of spiritual warfare. And that doesn't have to be like religious or like God thing. You can see it as just emotions. Like I'm heading down to hell to fight all these evil spirits, both within me, figure out where am I, where am I, where do I have some kind of weak spot, but also finding out a lot about these people. And I, at this point, I've interacted with so many people that it's like when people have certain attacks on you, I'm like, this is this person's insecurity. I've seen it so many times before. This is this person. So I've learned so much from this. So I have, at this point, I have a very mixed feeling of it. It's like, I think one thing, speaking about being the man and stuff, another like complex I've had is a sort of underdog thing, that I feel like I've always been a guy that actually wants to be good, that actually cares a lot about people, but I have a little bit of a certain personality that, triggers people really. And I often feel like I'm the good guy, but I get looked at as being the bad guy. And that thing I can still struggle with at times. But generally, I kind of enjoy this thing also, and I've learned so much from these interactions.
I think when it comes to kind of what we can maybe give to the audience in terms of what we're talking about here, I think going back to, because it's a shame to keep talking about the negative stuff without like maybe giving the audience something to, our experience on it. Because I think overwhelmingly we both get a lot of very positive comments.
Oh
And
yeah, sorry, that's something I should have said. That
yeah. It goes without saying, of
these
course, yeah.
cases are the most interesting. Like, who needs to hear like, oh, all my guys, they're so nice to me. Like, absolutely. I keep, when I remember, I always say that overwhelmingly the stuff I get is positive, and
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And those are always appreciated a lot, because it's a lot of what
Oh yeah.
boosts the account, boosts the algorithm and everything. But I think when it comes to the negative stuff, I think the big problem is in their minds, they are presented with this feeling which they need to deal with somehow. So they write down a comment, and to write down a comment in a way which makes it appear that they're not insane, they have to create an argument. So they write down what seems to be to them a logical argument. I think the issue is engaging in that can just cause further aggravation. And I think if I was to maybe give a pointer to people in the audience, I would say if your life, not just the internet life, but I think if your life involves a lot of argumentation, a lot of conflict, a lot of anger, something that I've learned is maybe just it's important to look at yourself and look at kind of what energies you're putting out there. So I think one of my favorite phrases is by Heraclitus. It's a man's character is his fate. And I think like I see it as an older guy, I see it with people around me, like guys who are not very good at communication. So we all know the type of person who, when you're speaking, they immediately speak over you and like they have to get their point out, all that, and it's very difficult. I find with those guys, if you observe them for long enough, they usually end up with either failing friendships or failing marriages or etc. stuff like that, and they don't really see it because in their minds they believe in the moment that they've got something really important to say and they want to say it. And I think every character flaw that we have over time, it's like a snowball. It does tend to get magnified. Like nowadays, the age that I'm at, 44, and having made so many mistakes in my life, I try to magnify and amplify those in my mind so that I don't fall prey to those mistakes, fall prey to hubris, thinking I know everything, or thinking like I'm the authority and everything, or my way is the right way. And I think those kind of failures in life and those things have made me a lot more introspective. So all I would say to people who are listening, maybe younger guys, maybe older guys as well, is if you have a situation or if you have a recurring problem, maybe you have a recurring problem with, I don't know, holding down a relationship, maybe lots of arguments in a relationship, or maybe your job situation, whatever it is, like it might not be life. Like you play a role in everything. Like I hand on heart say, I have played a role in every major failure in my life. I have to believe that, because if I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't be able to progress as a man. I wouldn't be able to actually learn. And so, yeah, I just think it's very difficult sometimes for people to see and break out these recurring cycles. Like I'll give you an example. There was back in about 2017, I did a summer of PTing in person. I very rarely do that, but it was okay. It was fine. And I had this one client of mine, an older lady. She was about 60 at the time. But I remember once she invited me to her car after the session. We'd sit down and she wanted to talk about something. And she just started crying. And she was talking about how her relationship with the latest man had broken apart. And she'd had a series of relationships the time I'd known her, and they'd all fallen apart after, a few months or a few weeks or whatever. And I was trying to, maybe it wasn't the right time to do it, but I was trying to offer her some perspective on why it happens, because she had a fairly obvious character flaw in that she gave way too much of herself straight away. And that was probably a consequence of her childhood, but also a consequence of her being older now and getting a bit desperate for, a relationship. And so that just scared men off. And the type of men that she was attracting at that age were maybe a bit more transactional than she wanted, and they just wanted, sex basically.
Mm,
They didn't want a commitment, so that kind of scared them. But she wasn't really, when I started to say these things, she wasn't really willing to listen. And she's like, no, 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 it's just men, all men are the same. And I think like that, to me, I use that as an example all the time when I'm talking to my friends of like, it's such a classic example. This woman has probably been failing at relationships for 45 years. And in that time, she's never had 1 ounce of introspection to think at some point, maybe this is something that I'm doing wrong in my process. And even when I try and say it to her, she just won't take it at all. And
mm,
all I'll say to the audience is, if you are finding yourself getting in these arguments all the time, or your life is full of stress or this or that, you have to look at your own role in this, and you can't think like every single circumstance is just somebody else's fault. I mean, it goes in with fitness as well. I mean, fitness people will say, well, I can't go to the gym. I've skipped the gym for a couple of weeks. I've got the kids. It's summer holidays. I've got the kids. It's like, well, there's
mm,
loads of people in the gym who've got kids. Are they all childless? Is that what we're
mm,
saying? There's always an excuse ready in the barrel to go, and
mm,
which excuses your own behavior, your own character flaw. But the problem is, the more you live life, the older you are, the more you're going to succumb to those issues if you just think it's everyone else's fault and not yours. So as much as possible, I do try and stay very introspective, but it's difficult because, it means you have to doubt your own thought process.
mm.
You can't do that all the time, otherwise you'd never be able to live life. So I do try and be as introspective as possible, particularly if like things have happened. And I evaluate my role in it, maybe ask my friends, could I have done things different in that way or whatever. And but it's tough though. I think it's very difficult. I think people who think they've got all the answers, they tend to be the ones who are usually the worst off. And I think
Mm.
that's important to remember. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. There are many interesting things I think of when I listen to you talk about that. First of all, I had to feel like, I don't know, every bad situation or outcome in my life was on some level my fault. I don't always think it's productive to think of it as like fault, but it's still like responsibility.
Yeah.
Like for instance, let's say something simple like, oh, stuff you get, people keep stealing your stuff or something. It's like, maybe you don't deserve that. Maybe it's like not you doing something bad so people want to steal from you, but maybe you do something naive or something like that. So you have to change something, whether it's your fault or not. If something keeps happening to you, it's your responsibility. You cannot just like, oh, the world is dumb. It's like, yeah, the world might be dumb, but you have to be better than if you want a different outcome. But I think a very interesting dilemma in a sense is that I'm someone that had to, because I'm kind of a different person. I've had to notice so much how I'm different to other people growing up. They're like, oh, people get upset by this, or like, oh, this that I did was wrong. I've had to question myself so much. And for instance, this that I talk a lot. And I like, for instance, on this podcast that I get to show that, hey, I actually listen also. But I've had to
He's
learn.
a very good listener, FYI.
I will thank you, man. No, but I've had to learn not only to like because you had then to learn not only that all people don't aren't as naturally extroverted, but they also don't kind of grab the word as much as I do. I might even have to slow down, give breaks, ask questions, this kind of thing. But sometimes I've done all of these things, and someone will still say behind my back that, oh, he talks too much. It's like, no, you're a fucking pussy, and you let me talk a lot. It's like, so if you're someone that has questioned yourself a lot, you're actually going to find yourself in a situation that you have reoccurring situations that are not really your fault. And then it's hard. You can get blind spots then because you're so used to like, oh, this thing again, this typical misunderstanding again. But so I think that happens sometimes. A lot of guys that follow me, or because I think a lot of people have a hate-love relationship to someone they follow. That they love them, they really like, they see a lot of themselves, but then certain things get reflected, mirrored back to them that remind them of some weaknesses they have. So some people, even guys that like me, I can notice like, oh, but he really hates this thing, though, and then they will say stuff like, oh, you think you're perfect, la 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 la. It's like while I always make the point that I'm not perfect, I know that I'm not, and it's because I am so aware that I'm not perfect. I keep questioning myself, and I come closer to perfection. But no, I'll never be perfect, and yes, I will make mistakes. That's how it works. So I think in that dynamic, people, if they follow you, I feel like people aren't humble sometimes. And it's like, hey, maybe you're not here to give me advice. Maybe the reason you're following me and not the other way around is because you should take my advice, even on things where you feel like you know best. And even this like need sometimes to like have to put someone in their place. Like you think you're all that. It's like, because I never feel that need. Even if I see someone and like, okay, this person is on an ego trip, I don't get the impulse that I need to tell them in their comments, right? Where did that come from? Who are you actually trying to say? So are you trying to tell me something, or are you telling yourself something through me, right? So yeah, man, what was the last thing I was thinking about there? No, it's like, yeah, do you know what I'll say? That generally, when I am in my coach role, when I feel like now I'm speaking to my audience or my clients or whatever, of course I know I could get something wrong, but generally then I'm like, I'm, it's almost like a flaw that I kind of have to question myself so much. Like I wish sometimes that I could just shut it off. But I would try to do that a bit more because I'm like, no, I'm so used to all these situations. I'm so used to this typical nonsense feedback, to be honest. But for instance, when I sit and listen to a guy like you and certain people in my life, I would be way more open-minded. Even if I initially don't quite agree with something, I'm like, well, for instance, Faz, he is older than me. We're, on the same track in many things. We share many things. I think there are many things Faz may know better than me. So I, at the very least, be humble enough to listen, take it in, and reflect on it. And then, as I always do, then later I will make up my mind. And maybe with certain people that are more like a mentor, when they're like my coach, maybe 3 or 4 times out of 5, I will be like, yeah, you know what, they were right. I'll move more towards their perspective. But again, no one is perfect. So the 1 or 2 times it'd be like, no, I actually think he didn't quite get me here. I'll stick to doing things the way I want. So yeah, man, it's about being introspective for sure. And I think one thing I wish people could do before I throw it back to you is like take stuff in and sit on it, reflect on it, like
Mm.
actually listen. People, they just have their like kind of like reaction and then go to that. Like you said, they have to make up an argument around it. But it's like notice that impulse within you and resist it, sit on this for a while, and then see what you think.
A great analogy to that is actually diet. So, like, for somebody who's dieting, and especially if it's a contest prep, getting right down to really lean levels, they will invent the best reason for why they need a refeed, right? On this Friday, But anyway, to comment on what you're saying, I think the acid test for everyone is the outcomes in life. So I think, if you have a good relationship, which is mutual, built on mutual respect and love, if you have good, strong friendships who you can rely on for mental health and support, it generally is a good sign you're doing things fairly well. I mean, that can have its issues as well, but generally speaking, if you have good relationships, like you have a good relationship with your brother, it's a good sign that things are okay. I think if you that's the acid test because you can always throw it back to the person. You can always say, well, that was their role in this and I'm absolving myself. But I think ultimately people need to maybe take stock of their lives. Like I'll give you an example of this. This is going to sound like a really sad example from my life, right? And I'm sure this is going to get me like a lot of people taking a piss out of me. But about 4 years ago, I realized that I'd been so busy with work and everything. I didn't really have a lot of great friends. Like I had some old friends.
Mm.
One of my oldest friends, we've been friends for like 35 years, and but I didn't have friends that I could think were really, really good friends. So one of my New Year's resolutions from that year was to make friends. As sad as it sounds, right? Was to
No,
make
no,
good
no.
friends.
I think that's great,
Yeah.
actually. Mm.
Because I thought, right, okay, business is going well, work's going well, marriage is going great. Like, I need friends, right? So, because my wife's got like two good friends, like two of her work colleagues, like there's like three 40-year-old women. They're all turning 40 this year, and like she's got her best friends. Like, I thought I need some good friends, so I set it
Mm.
upon myself to make friends. And that year, one of my friends, he's a lawyer, a solicitor lawyer, and I made a couple of other friends who people have seen on my training videos who train with me, and we train every morning together like 6 days a week, and we're really good friends. They're also business owners. They're very successful, and so we have a lot in common, and we talk about things and we support each other and everything. And I finally in a place where I feel like I've got good friends. So for me, that was what I'm talking about. It's an acid test of my theories. Like, okay, right. So I think I'm a friendly, personable person. Now, I don't have many friends, so I could be an absolute psychopath, or I could just be maybe I haven't really put my energies into that area yet. So I decided, okay, this is the year where I'm going to start to make friends. Sounds so sad. And turns out, actually, I'm a decent human being because I made some friends and we're best friends. And, the rest of my life is going well as well. And that's okay. So I think the acid test is always the reality of the situation. So, yeah, that's always like if you have a happy, successful marriage, good friends, even YouTube to a certain extent is maybe a reflection of yourself. I think business in general is
Oh yeah.
business in general, I think is kind of it's supposed to be this money making thing, but actually what it is really just a mirror to your own soul, like telling you about all of your insecurities, all of your worries about life, about who you are as a human being. Like, or business has a way of just picking at the string of every insecurity you have. And really,
Yeah.
what business is actually a self-improvement vehicle, not really a money-making endeavor. It says, I feel like I'm a better, more well put together person now than I was at the beginning of this adventure. And I can say that successfully because I have the results to prove it. I mean, I'm not saying everything's right. My work-life balance is terrible, but but I'm getting there, and I have plans forward. And again, like with the making friends thing, I will solve that when I get to it as well. But just an example there.
Yeah, no, but man, I think that's humble of you to share because, I understand what you mean, like, oh, how it sounds and that. But I think many men especially can relate to that, and especially men that are like driven in this sort of way. Because what often happens, I realize that, and it's something I talk about out loud on my channel. And by the way, apart from like facing like haters and stuff, like not even just haters, but this, that I said, noticing the intensity of just feeling exposed. I started also in the same kind of like process for myself. I started actively going places in my content that I didn't feel comfortable with. Because,
Mm,
for instance, the panic attack story, it's like, it's so easy. Like, I'm not vulnerable when I share that. I feel like I'm talking about like a movie that happened before my life actually started. But if I talk about something I struggle with now, that I might feel like, oh, it's shameful somehow. It's way more difficult. And I expressed this. I realized that I have a sort of hyper independent trait, which, it can be strength, again, that you can do a lot for yourself. And I've also had this thing that, I'm extroverted. I would say that generally when I move about in my life, people like me and I have nice interactions all over the place. But what I notice, especially when I'm a little lower place and I'm not as naturally outgoing like that, that's when I notice sort of what you say also, that, I may have some friends and that, but I don't really have the ongoing friendship. If you like, they are there, but there's some floating somewhere. There's not this constant connection between us. And what I've realized in my case, it's a lot that my upbringing has taught me that I shouldn't rely too much on other people. It's better if I just do it myself. And
mm,
so it's not something I ever think of consciously, but I realize it sometimes. Like, for instance, when a friend of mine or someone in my family keeps asking me for help about something, I realize at some point that it doesn't even occur to me that I can ask for help about things. It's like, it's not necessarily I'm thinking, I cannot, I need to do it myself. It's like I don't even have the habit. So, I think it's good that you bring that up because I think a lot more people struggle with that. And I think a lot of people feel like it's something shameful. But I think, we're shaped a certain way by our life. And I think especially just with actually just how the world looks like right now, I think people are more disconnected in general. When there aren't all these screens and stuff, and so many people are able to work from home, there's a really great aspect to that, but it's also this aspect that, Jeffrey talked about that on the last episode, that a lot of it is going to be you in your room with a camera or a computer or something.
yeah.
So you're going to notice more this kind of thing. So I think, yeah, I've done the same. That the relationships that I have, I actively invest more, even during times like now. When I feel good, I don't really feel like I need to see friends so often. But I try to, like in a work-life balance, I try to like, oh no, make some time for this person for your sake. And yeah, it's really improving for me. And so, yeah, man,
It's
great
interesting
point to
you
bring
say
up.
that. It's interesting you say that because I think one thing that I've thought about with men's relationships with each other is I think there has to be a focal point. You have to do something together. So like with my
Mm,
two best friends, we go to the gym together every morning. And I think without that focal point where we just put our headphones in, we just blast the weights for an hour. I
mm,
don't, and then afterwards we talk when we're, but I just, as men, I think you need that central focal activity. Like I'll give you an example. In Britain, there are various men's mental health charities. Now, the history of men's mental health charities has actually been disastrous. Like originally, they were basically just talk lines, so men would phone up and try and talk about their emotions, which generally men are horrendous at doing. Now, they were not successful. So nowadays, what the modern British mental health lines are doing is they're actually forming groups and organizations where you're not there to talk, you're there to do something. So, like a men's mental health organization its front might be a five-a-side football league, or its front might be a hiking group, where the underlying current is we are going to speak about our emotions and our feelings and everything we've got to say if we need to. The idea is there, but actually we are here to play football. We're here to hike a mountain. And I think like for me and my boys, every morning we turn up, we go there to train, we feel good about each other, which is great, right? And then afterwards on the treadmill or whatever else, if there's something that we need to talk about to get off our chest or whatever, we can do that, safe in the knowledge that we have that relationship, we can do that. And I think the difficult thing, like to go back to what Jeffrey was saying, a lot of times, like for guys like you and me, we are just stuck in our rooms in front of our cameras, talking to our clients or whatever else. A lot of my work is, well, all of my work is online pretty much. And I think that can really restrict your outgoing. So with the friends that I've got, I make sure that we just make sure we have that connection. And like with my other friend, the solicitor, the lawyer, we meet probably twice a month. Just we go down to the local shisha cafe for I get some food. I'm not really big into shisha, and he has a bit of a smoke, and it's nice to have that interaction. But I think without that, if it's just a text messaging conversation and you don't have that central point of doing an activity, I think guys really struggle. Like my wife's okay with that kind of stuff with her friends. She'll talk and text them and stuff, and it's fine. She can have that relationship, but with men, I think you just need that central point of something to do. Otherwise, the relationship can trail off pretty quickly. So, and that can be tough in today's society.
Yeah. It's like one of my friends, speaking of having this central activity, sort of, one thing I do a lot, with guy friends is like sauna. It's a big thing in Sweden also, because it's sort of a passive activity. So you're going to be sitting and talking anyway, but it's still like, we're not seeing each other to just sit here and talk. We're going to go there, we're going to heat it up and, go out, take a cold shower every once in a while and that kind of thing. This one of the friends I will see in a sauna, he always says this, that men do things together. That's what we do. We see each other to do something, and women can actually see each other to talk. And maybe even if we're going to see each other to talk, it's still going to be around some sort of activity. And that's what I've noticed, because another thing, let's say I'm still, during a period like this, going to prioritize work and stuff a bit more. I'll still try to reach out and text guys, but maybe not like, oh, how are you doing? Like that. But maybe some activity we share something about, send something that, if let's say I'm scrolling Instagram, something related to some kind of shared interest I have with someone, like I send that to them. And actually, one thing, a friend, I feel so mean now, because I've kind of realized that he's like my best friend, and I've been in denial of it, and I've like apologized to him over that, because I've been too independent. Like, it's a story in and of itself. Like, it was kind of beautiful when I said sorry and I love you and everything over that. But he sends me these like memes and reels and stuff, and sometimes it's something I think is funny, but so many times I just like, this is just crap, bro. Like, why do you send me this?
Yeah.
I'm forced to watch this stuff just because you sent it to me. Yeah. But now I've started seeing it for something else. Like, okay, but it's like sort of a bid for connection. It's like, it means that he cares, that he wanted to send me something,
Yeah, I think that I have relationships like that with some of my friends where it's just meme batting like all day long. Now, but again, like I think it's okay. I think it can get quite boring if you don't have something connecting. Like my solicitor friend, he sends me memes all freaking day long. I don't know how he gets any work done, but like, and they're always the most like unhinged memes as well. So, but like we will meet, twice a month for a drink and stuff, and we actually laugh about how we're both professionals in professional jobs and sending those kind of memes. It's funny. But yeah, like I think you need that kind of connection. Otherwise, it is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I guess we can start. I love the conversation we've had so far, but we can start transitioning into some other things. I guess to do something that's kind of in the middle before I ask you some more like pure training stuff. You know, one of the first things you told me, I think you messaged me about it, and then you said it when you were on my podcast last time, that you like the holistic perspective that I bring. That, yeah, I'm a natural bodybuilder, but I bring this other stuff to the table. And yeah, that's really what it is for me. The natural bodybuilding is like not a small part, but it's still not like, oh, the thing. It's uncommon sense. Whatever goes into that, then part of that is natural bodybuilding. I guess I want to ask you, not like what you think that is to me necessarily. You could say like these things when you relate to it, but I want to ask you, like, what the holistic thinking or way or whatever you want, what would that mean to you? What would that include to you?
I think, like, for my personality type, like who I am and what I value, I think I've always been a competitor. So the competition experience for me has always been a way of adding that layer of discipline to my life, which I really enjoy and I like. Just gonna adjust my camera while I'm talking. Sorry, it kind of threw me off. The camera threw me off. I'm gonna fix that and I'm gonna throw it back to you. One second.
Yeah, sure. I don't really know what happened because I don't see anything.
Oh, yeah. But I have
But,
an AI. I have an AI camera and it does weird things. If I make
ah.
it starts to like move me around. So I felt myself sinking in. I was like, no, let's fix that. You know what I'll do? You know what I'll do? I'll answer that question again now that I'm not distracted, and feel free to like
Sure.
cut that bit
Yeah,
out. So,
please,
sorry.
please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I do have a good answer for that because it does mean a lot
Mm,
to me. Like my lifestyle, my bodybuilding, that what I do now is inherent to kind of who I am. So I,
mm,
I like I like the structure, I like the routine, I like the discipline of being like that guy who
mm,
wakes up at 5 o'clock, goes to the gym at 6 o'clock, eats the meals, does the lifestyle, achieves the goal, achieves the result, achieves the physique. I like that because it provides that level of discipline that I enjoy in my life because the discipline is freedom towards my goals. And I think that's sort of untalked about because the discipline that I have in work, the schedule that I set for myself is the freedom that allows me to enjoy the modicum of success that I have on YouTube and whatever comes from that with my clients and everything else. So yeah, for me, bodybuilding is a perfect fit into my life. I think it was Arnold who said anyone who's been a good bodybuilder could also translate that into business because it's the
mm,
same type of things. You're doing the same tick box activity every day. Where for me, I'm ticking off the tasks that I have to do, the videos that I have to release every week, this quality, the standards, and all of that can come from bodybuilding and it can transfer into bodybuilding. So the holistic side for me means a lot. Like it's how I achieve what I achieve. It's how I get things done. So it is integral to my life. I don't think I could just slack off on the physical side of things and be a dynamo at work. I like the fact that I can go to the gym at 6 o'clock, get back home for 7, quarter past 7, and carry on with my day and make sure, and knowing that I've already accomplished that side of things, but also accomplished the self care and the mental health side of going to the gym, feeling good about myself. And again, it sounds really artificial, but like a lot of things in my life, I will have a list for. I'll just tick them off, including
mm,
taking care of my own mental health, like things through with my marriage and stuff. Because if you don't tick them off and you're that busy and you want to achieve lots of things, if you just leave them to chance, they won't get done. Like I'll give you guys an example for your audience. Like every Sunday, me and the wife sit down and we go over our diaries to make sure like we know what our pinch points are during the week. Like my wife knows that I'm on this podcast right now. She bought me a
mm,
cup of tea before that without even being asked because like she's there to help me. And if she's got a thing, like let's say she's got like a parents' evening, she's a school teacher.
mm.
I'll know that I'll have things in place for her when she gets back because she's going to get back late. So little things like that. I don't see other couples doing that necessarily on a weekly basis. We've done that in the entire time we've lived together. Every single Sunday, we'll get together, we'll go over our diaries, make sure we know each other's plans for the week, we know where each other is, and we are able to help each other at points because I was speaking to a friend of mine about a year ago. He said he ran into an argument with his wife because they had a parents' evening for the kids on Thursday night, and she really wanted him to come. And she told him on Thursday, "Like, I want you to be there tonight." He's like, "Well, I don't know anything about it, and I've already arranged this for my business."
Mm.
And I thought to myself, like, people don't talk about that. Like, that's just communication. Just literally sit down, put it in your diary, sit down. We sit down together about usually 12 or 1 o'clock. Whenever I finish work on a Sunday morning, I usually do a few bits on a Sunday and we just go through our days. And I think that's just it's a simple tick box activity. But again, it's that prioritization. If you don't prioritize it, it's not going to get done. And I have a lot of tick boxes in my life for all kinds of things like work, relationships, friendships. I go to see my mum, multiple times a week as well and make sure she's okay. Like all these things, if you don't prioritize them, if you don't write them down in a list, they're not going to get done. So bodybuilding is just an extension of that level of discipline that I have, which allows me to do a lot of things, wear a lot of hats, and get a lot of stuff done.
Mm. Awesome, man. It's a great response. There's several things I think of. Like one thing, just what you said first, a bit distracted by the camera, was this. I talked about this many times about stacking wins throughout the day. So there are certain tasks that you do on different levels that, on some kind of level, it's going to send a signal to you like, hey, I'm doing well. Like, even if it's not like, oh, it was the first time I did this huge challenge. It's just like, go up on time. Like for me, for instance, certain things that start of my day. It's like, oh, I go up early, I take a cold shower, I get a little bit of work done, and I go train. Like this is, and then I come eat a good breakfast, right? These are like wins that, like, I know even on a day when I wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm my most optimistic and happiest, I know that after these wins, I'm gonna feel very differently, and then I'm gonna go about to do the rest of the day like this. And even on high periods like this, I even have to kind of schedule it, not the opposite of wins, but almost like I'm going to get so high throughout the day, throughout the wins, that I need to take time to actually be able to wind down. Because otherwise, I'm going to be like, I just want to do more. Not be able to sleep even. So yeah,
Brilliant.
it relates to that with stacking wins. Just like if you didn't really relate, you talked about making room for planning for mental health, sort of. And I mean, someone that isn't feeling great right now, they cannot just like, well, you need to do things for that to change. You can notice what actions influence your mental and emotional state. You want to say something there?
I think maybe I think with a large part of like the mental health stuff, I think if people did just have a plan and they
Mm,
executed a number of tasks during the day, I happen to think like a large part of the issues that we have with mental health is because it is usually stems from people being overly concerned with themselves and not being overly
mm,
concerned with doing things. I think
yeah,
if you think about it, the goal of meditation is the destruction of ego, right? Destruction of self. Like if we look at when you are at your absolute happiest, when are you not thinking about the worries, the bills, whatever else, is when you are in a free state, you're in free flow, and you
yeah.
are in an activity, right? I forget the term for it, but you're just in an activity, you are there. You're not thinking about yourself, what you
Flow
look like.
state.
Sorry, flow state. Thank you. Flow state. Yes. This is that. Thank you. So when you're in a flow state, and that is when you are least aware of yourself. You are like people say going to the gym is like therapy. Like it's not. Like please do
No.
get therapy if that's what you need. But what going to the gym does do is allows them to just get out of themselves for an hour and
Get
just
into the
be in
body.
that flow state. Exactly. Get into that flow state and just be there, be present in the moment. So I think when it comes to people improving their mental health, I actually do think a large route out of some mental health, not everything, because obviously there are hormonal imbalances and everything, but some low level stuff, I think just have a plan. Like whatever that plan is, have a plan, write down your task for the day, execute it. And like when I was, just to go back to what I was saying at the beginning, when I was going through that tough patch in 2020, what got me out of that tough patch was Monday morning, my clients. I know I need to deal with my clients. So I went, no matter how I was feeling, no matter what was going on, I sat in front of the computer, I dealt with my clients. And then I went to the gym and then I ate my meals. And I did that for long enough and consistently enough that I broke out of my funk and I had some time to process and deal with all the emotions and everything that was going on, which I couldn't do in the moment. And I think that's so. I just think with stuff like that, people do they miss a plan. And I'll say one more thing before I throw it back to you.
Sure.
Going to the root of all these things that we're talking about, because people might say, well, what's the point of going to the gym at 6 in the morning, writing all your meals? We are in the end, what we're talking about here, what we're both talking about is being happy. And the end result is being happy, whether that's being successful in your work or your relationships or your marriage or whatever it is, just being happy. And I happen to think this is a maxim that I live by now, Theo. And I think it's so over the years I've just come to this as this is my epitaph. It's success is a series of daily executable habits. That's what
Mm,
it is. I think any endeavor, the end goal, work back from that goal, break it down into chunks and break those chunks down into daily executable tasks and just execute on those tasks every single day relentlessly. Always turn up to the gym in the morning. Always get your work done. Never, ever miss client check ins. Never miss your videos for the week. Get it done. And I think if you do that for long enough, consistently enough, you'll be in a position where you have enough self pride to feel happy about yourself, and also you will give yourself the mental space and time to deal with whatever other issues you have going on. And it goes back to what I was saying before about like too much empty space leads people into dysfunction. And that's what I see with guys my age. They get that empty space, they have no goals, they're aimless in life because they don't have that. And they just end up drinking, cheating, and doing God knows what else. So I do think one of the routes towards good mental health, and I feel I've got good mental health, is having that large goal in different areas, like you were asking about bodybuilding being holistic. That's one of my goals, as well as business, as well as my marriage, and then breaking that down into a series of daily executable habits and tasks. So you're not aimless. You have a plan which is made by you and fits your goals and your life. The ultimate expression of that is, I think, being self-employed and doing things for yourself. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be whatever your goal is. But the point is, you've got to have a plan for you and make sure you execute that on a daily basis. And that will give you that sense of pride and give you that mental space to avoid just being aimless and thinking about God knows what. That for me, I think that's what success is. That's what happiness is. Happiness and success are both a series of daily executable habits for me.
Oh yeah, man. Love it. Love all of that. It's awesome to hear you even bring up the concept of flow states, because it's something I've been talking, I've been in a very high state, as I call it lately. People are a little bit different, but everyone is going to be able to have like higher and lower states. And I see it both as in the short term on a day, but in the long term, like if you have some really tragic life event happening, that's going to put you in a lower state. Like you cannot just train your way out of that, right? But you can maybe do something to feel better about it. No, but so when I've been, as I call it, been in a really high state lately, I've talked a lot about, because the flow state is much easier to achieve then. And I think one thing for me is that you say like losing the sense of self or dissolving the ego. What I feel it is? I actually feel like the most like my true self in the flow state, but it's like I have so much like distance to my ego though. I've talked about the concept about the ego. The ego isn't bad. It's like a function of you, but a certain ego, when it runs the show, that's bad. And so the way I see it is like if you have your ego on a leash, if you're in a leash, yeah, you can move around freely, but there's someone that's gonna, pull you in certain directions and that. And if you're just a little dog, maybe you don't even understand, But the point is like, are you the one holding the leash, or is the ego the one holding the leash? And that's the thing to watch out for, because it can change also. Even if you are in flow, you're in control. If something happens that throws you off, now suddenly you might not notice, but the roles have sort of flipped. But what I wanted to get to is that really in flow state, I feel like the most myself, but also that I really identify with myself. I'm just looking at Theo operating through things. And this is when it's so easy for me, for instance, to interact with the negative comments and that we're talking about, because it's just like, yeah, even if I'm like, I noticed Theo doesn't like this. I even think of it this way, that I just have a Theo here. And I'll let Theo be angry for a little bit here. And then I'll just go back to flow and do whatever else I was doing. And it's actually returning to sort of childlike nature, because you know how children are with emotions. They run around being like, all happy, then they fall. And now it's the saddest thing in the world, crying, And you comfort the child, and a minute later, they're all happy and running around again. That's sort of how we're supposed to be with our emotions. They're supposed to come and go, like flow. But of course, the way we go through life and traumas and that, we like learn to suppress. We get a lot of like stuff that is like in the way of the flow. But yeah, there are so many things you talked about that I really want to comment on. Like first of all, what you mentioned about like how you and your wife cooperate, I think that's awesome. That's the sort of relationship I would want also. And in general, I want relationships to at least have that, like even if all of them aren't that close, that you actually live together, you're married and stuff, but that there is mutual aspect like that. And really what you described was like very good communication between each other. Because that's something I see, like with my parents, for instance, like I love my parents, and I have improved my relationships with my entire family a lot, but because it wasn't always great when I was younger. But I noticed, for instance, that my parents is like, you don't even fucking talk to each other. It's like, you could be getting along so much better if you actually expressed some things to each other, So, and the last thing I wanted to say, there are so many things I could talk about, but what you really talked about, what makes it like spiritual, why I sometimes say that bodybuilding is actually very spiritual, is that because you talked about what success is.
Yeah.
One way I would define success is really not this like, oh, that you have a bunch of money and you're famous and blah, blah. It's really that you're achieving what you want out of life. And a big part of that is like, you say, happiness, just feeling good, right? But why I think bodybuilding is so good for all of this is that it really shows you how to manifest, as we say in spirituality. And some people think that it's just sitting and saying affirmations or something, and then stuff will just happen. And like I say, a thing like that could like help reprogram that you think about something. If you say something over and over, you might start thinking that a bit more. But what it actually is, manifestation, is aligning yourself with the outcome you want to see further down the line, right? That's what we do with bodybuilding. We have a program, a plan for progressive overload. We eat in a certain way, and we're paving the way for the outcome we want to see. In this case, getting more jacked or leaner, and then we just see how it works, and we apply this in other areas in our life. And you described it beautifully, how you do this with like all things. I think for me, I don't always like write things out as clearly, but I have a plan for it right here. But I've actually started doing what you do with certain things that I just see like this thing that I'd like to happen more. It seems like I'm just not finding it in me right now. So I'll actually write down like a little plan for tomorrow. And after these things, then I'm going to do this thing that I seem to forget about in the grand scheme of things.
As you get older, your memory will get worse, so you'll start to write things down more.
Do you know what I noticed? Again, this with high state, low state. When I'm in the high state, it's like, no, I have a perfect calendar in my head, pretty much. Like I get amazed sometimes how many things I just keep track of. But I've noticed many times I've had to learn with myself that I have to sort of plan for the person I'm going to be at times. So I have to kind of create these habits. Like, okay, I should even if I feel like I don't need it right now, I should even write it down just to build a habit. So it's easier to pick up later, further down the line. The last thing I'll say before I throw it back to you is about the mental health part. I think sometimes some things, like I said, tragic life events, you cannot just go to the gym and stack wins and you're just not sad that this person died or whatever it was. It doesn't quite work like that. But it's still a big part of, you have to grieve certain things. As part of the process is actually just being sad and maybe doing a bit less throughout that time, taking some time to mourn or process. But one part at a point, though, like you said, this empty space of not doing enough, suddenly you're just going to run circles around the same things. You're not really processing. You're just more like holding on to something. And it's actually just doing stuff, getting active, getting new experiences, filling yourself with new impressions. That's what actually takes you out of it further down the line. So I guess what I want to say with that is like, all of this that we're talking about is great, and it's going to be helpful for the mental health as well. I just want to like kind of validate someone going through a hard time that like it's not all there is to it. It's like you're allowed to have a hard time and struggle also.
Yeah, of course. I think it's important to just recognize, what I'm talking about is it's not the absence of grieving. I think you absolutely have to grieve. You have to deal with your emotions at some point. I just think sometimes when some real tragedy occurs, it's difficult to deal with things in the moment because there is no playbook. Like, how do I deal with this? If somebody close to you dies, sometimes the feelings are so overwhelming, you just don't know what to do. And so my thoughts with this kind of stuff, especially with me in 2020, there was no way I could deal with whatever I was feeling in the moment. I had to just get back to work, and I had to allow myself what was months of time to just process what was going on in my head and everything, and eventually get to the point where I felt okay. But like if I had sat there and ruminated all day long about myself, I would have been in a mess. So I think I don't want to give people the impression that I'm trying to say to them, just have the British, stiff upper lip and just get on with things. I don't think that's valid at all. I just think you're being kind to yourself by giving yourself some mental space and giving you some tasks to do to distract yourself so that you are allowed some mental space. Some of that initial insult from whatever has happened has started to dull a little bit, to fade, and you're in a position where you can work through things when it's not so raw. That's all. I think what I'm talking about is, and what you're talking about really is a case of being kinder to yourself, because you're not always in a position to deal with things straight away. Sometimes the feelings are very overwhelming. I'm talking about real tragedies here. And so, so that kind of stuff is, just distract yourself.
Yeah. And of course, I didn't feel like you were saying anything different. I just wanted to clarify because, I know how it, when someone is in a dark place and they say like, oh, so I'm just supposed to be able to do better. I guess I just do it, just want to make sure that it comes across in the right way to people. Man, just quick, how are you on time?
Probably got another 20 minutes or so.
Okay, sure.
Most work.
Yeah. But what I was saying is, I've noticed this, talking about different states of being, like, because it's not just emotional, it's physical, it's a nervous system, and there are actually I don't know how accurate it is, but it's this like frequency chart of different emotions. And they show like shame and guilt, and these are at the lowest. And at the top is like love, enlightenment, something different. But and then are these things in between. And what I've noticed is this with stacking wins throughout the day. During a period when there's actually some like real hardship going on that I can't just train away, yeah, I'm never gonna get to the top of just love and complete self-transcendence, pretty much this flow state. I'm not completely gonna be able to achieve it, but I can come out of that deepest. That's what I noticed. So that's why I think even though you might be able to do less at certain times, that's why again this bodybuilding lifestyle and certain other things, such great cornerstones to have. Because I saw that through a period in 2023, I had a really difficult period, but I knew even if my day felt dreadful when I started it, I knew that sometime after lunch, when I've done these things, I'm actually going to feel neutral. It's like I'm not going to feel all happy and excited and stuff, but I just having these wins in my backpack, I've actually reached a neutral state. Yeah. And yeah, I think sometimes when you're in a more depressive state, nothing really feels appealing to do. It's like, because you're like, oh, what can I do to change something? And you might think of things or someone else tells you, and you're like, no, not that. No, I clearly don't feel like that. But many times it's just having new impressions, distractions, like you said, but in a good way, sort of.
I think maybe where our personalities are a little bit different is the way it's worked for me is as I've been through life and achieved more success in things I've done, like like marriage or work and stuff. I think overall it's given me a much more of a more long-lasting sense of calm and like confidence. I mean, to be fair, that's not different to you either. I mean, you've achieved a lot of success too. You look fantastic. Your channel's doing well. And like, so I think overall, what happens the day for me personally, I know maybe it's an age thing, but the days are less up and down,
It's a what thing?
For me, like a maybe age thing. Like, I think because as you get older, essentially emotions tend to be less up and down, generally, as far as my experience. I think certainly for me, anyway, the older I am now, the more kind of relaxed I am and more kind of on the level. I don't get like super happy and I don't get like super sad. I just kind of like have a nice level of contentment with life. And I think like with stacking wins, for me, it's less of a kind of a daily thing because I don't really have a lot of daily fluctuations. I generally feel pretty good. But I think over time, what I do have is more of a sense of confidence in who I am and just generally feeling like things are okay in the world. And that's kind of where the stacking wins for me has led to more of a long-term sense of just peace and fulfillment. And that's kind of what I do. I don't have a lot of daily fluctuations anymore with
Yeah. To just clarify that, I think of these things both in the short and long term. Like right now, for instance, none of this is really about like doing anything to elevate myself. I'm gonna feel great every day, pretty much. I'm just saying, I see how it can influence the way you feel both in the short term, but then of course certain bigger outcomes and goals in the long term. That's the manifestation, as I talked about. Yeah, man, about personality and that I just had to accept that I'm not officially diagnosed like that. I don't know if I fit the criteria, but I can just see that I have this sort of bipolarity that I've always had. That even when I was a completely different person, I would just have these periods when it's like, yeah, well, I'm just kind of excited. I feel confident. I feel good in myself, almost like no matter what I do. But getting to know that my goal is now, because I used to see it as like that highest state. That's like when things are the way they're supposed to. And then it's not good when I'm low. Now, when I see that it's sort of okay, it's just a pattern of being Theo that I have a bit of that to deal with. I'm even happy to sacrifice some of the highest highs to not to go as low. And I already see myself improve on that. That even like earlier this year, a mild depressive episode, but it was still way different than it would have been at other times. So yeah, man, I think it's true what you say that you kind of stabilize naturally in a sense as you get older. But then we have a little bit like different ways of functioning. Some people are quite stable. There has to be something really major that happens to throw them in either direction. Someone like me, it seems to be like just more natural. I just have to catch myself. Don't go too high and don't go too low.
I don't think anything is better or worse. I don't think my way or your way is better or worse. I think it's just a case of recognizing yourself and who you are, and like you say, have strategies. Like I know for me, being much more stable the older I am, because I think I was like that, like you when I was younger, and I
Mhm.
think that instability maybe caused a bit of, I think, unknown, maybe nervousness, maybe with certain family members, because they didn't really know how to handle
Mhm.
me at certain times, because I'd get up and I'd get down and stuff. And I think now that I'm an older guy, I'm much more settled in my life, my wife and everything. I think everybody around me much more knows what to expect and knows that I'm generally fairly in a good mood and just things are very okay. So I
Mhm.
think like it has maybe an effect on people around you. And I think like I know now, like my mum is just super happy with where I am in life, and she's very chilled and relaxed around me and everything. And she's always loved me. But I do know like at times in my life when I've been a bit more up and down, she has been worried about me. And
Mhm.
that's not a nice feeling to have. So it's nice that all my family members now see me as somebody who's very well put together. And it's not about the business and the success or anything. It's more about just being around me in the mental state, being fairly predictable and sort of thinking you're generally pretty okay. So,
Mhm.
but as I say, none of this is a declaration that any way is better. It's more just
No.
what I've seen in myself, an observation of myself, probably over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, yeah, man. No, it's like I think I always have this polarity a bit more than most. Like, the way holistic bodybuilding, I realize I see myself as I'm highly interested in individuals. And I came up with this new express, individual engineering, and so you have to see certain, like even the physique, like genetics, like there are certain starting points, but then we can shape this into many different things. Now you see certain people, some of my clients also had this more of this polarity, but I think I see that I can change it. I can improve it, and I want to. My goal now, instead of thinking I should be high all the time, it's like I'll stay a bit closer to the center at all times. I'll enjoy when I'm a bit higher. I won't judge myself too harshly when I'm a bit lower, and I'm gonna end up closer to the center. But yeah, man, it's a part of this again is with communication, because I know also that it can be worrisome. Like, oh, now he's high again. Like, when will it come down? Kind of, but I've learned to communicate a lot better about it. That, for instance, when I'm a bit lower, certain situations that I might love otherwise, I just like I don't want to be in it because I feel this pressure that I should be a certain way that I can't be. And now I've just learned that I can communicate that, hey, I'm not, I'm a bit low right now. I want to come, but I just want to have that said, so you guys know if I'm a bit more quiet now. And the funny thing is that then a lot of the pressure to be a certain way is gone, and I'll actually be a bit more open, and I'm closer to the center. So, yeah, man, it's all about knowing yourself and working with what you've been dealt. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely about knowing yourself. Yeah, yeah, for sure. But then that's it. Yeah, I know. I mean, people are different, aren't they? So, yeah. But anyway, we'll. I think. Did you want to speak about training or something?
Yeah, it is funny because we got into so many very interesting things. It's not like, it's not like we have to, but I guess I wanted to get at least one kind of simple thing, and we can see what that leads to before we go. But I kind of wanted to ask you, the way I see you is like OG in the space, like on social media and stuff. Maybe before recently you made an entrance, but from what I know of you, like you've been around and you've been doing the thing actually for a long time. There's so many people on social media with huge followings, but it's like, I don't know, some teenager that trained for 3 years and just went viral. The point is that I see you as like very knowledgeable about the actual thing. And I guess one question, especially since we don't have too much time to get into in depth and everything, is just that as the coach you are, and let's say someone is that they want to get fit, that they're new to it. It's like, okay, I like what you guys are talking about, this entire holistic bodybuilding thing. I guess I should embrace that. So how should I start? If you're giving them like, this is how to start, what would you tell them? These are the things to keep in mind, focus on this, that kind of thing.
Okay, so the way that I like to do it is I just compartmentalize the different aspects. So if I have a new client, we do a consultation and I talk them through kind of more looking at what they're able to do, what they're able to commit to. So training, what type of diet they like, their different choices for diet. So I think part of making this thing that we do, this bodybuilding holistic thing we do, is fitting it to their lives. So you've got to individualize to a certain extent. So different styles of dieting. You may be a macro tracker, you may be a meal plan guy, you may be a sort of habit-based guy. And I think none of those are better or worse. It's kind of what we're talking about with personality types. It's kind of like just what suits you. So I'm at the point now where I'm perfectly happy to teach all of those methods. I have private playlists of just hours of information, just me, basically lectures, me talking about how to macro track, how to do habit-based intuitive eating, how to do meal planning, all that kind of stuff. So I think diet in that sense, make sure that we know what they can do with their lives. Like some of my clients, one of the one of the clients I had with the craziest schedule, he worked for Nestle, so Cadbury's, the chocolate company, and 2 weeks out of every month he would be in places like Kenya and like the Congo and stuff. His life was just crazy. So I had to teach him more of a habit-based way of eating because that fit his lifestyle. So that was kind of the diet taken care of. Then we look at the training. Well, what can we do training wise? How many days can we commit to? And look at some of their life circumstances. A lot of times it's centered around maybe injuries, preferences, goals, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of thing. And then we maybe look at the activity levels, activity/cardio, and have a look at taking care of that. So what I like to do, similar to what I do with my life, I take a holistic thing, which is bodybuilding or even just life, like friends, etc., and I break it down into daily executable habits. Like I'm saying, like my life mantra is success, happiness is a series of daily executable habits. So what my clients get is this seemingly huge task ahead of them to get from where they are now to where they want to be, broken down into quite literally daily executable habits. Like, right, if I just do this that Faz has given me for long enough, I just tick off Monday, tick off Tuesday, carry on ticking off, that's a week. If I tick off 2 weeks, that's half a month. If I tick off a month, I'm almost there to a quarter. Like that, for me, that's because that's my personality. That is how I teach things. So a lot of the clients I have, they respond to that way of sort of logically breaking down what is a large concept into daily executable habits, because I think that's just key to just everything. And from that, you get that sense of joy, you get that sense of pride. You also get the consistency to slowly change yourself into that person. Like God knows, 20 years ago, I would not have thought like I am that guy who wakes up at 5:15 and goes to the gym at 6 and eats, chicken and rice. But apparently I am that guy now. But that manifests itself into. Sorry.
You became that guy.
I became that guy, exactly, and I became that guy through a series of daily executable habits, and now I embody that guy because that's who I am. And because before you embody something, you have to do the tasks. So I had done those tasks for long enough and consistently enough that I eventually became that person. And the weird thing is, this is crazy, Theo. People who see me on YouTube now think of me as that lean coach. Like I never was, or that bodybuilding guy. Like I was a powerlifter, absolute hardcore powerlifter, wanted nothing to do with physique at all for 15 years, doing dozens of competitions. I didn't care at all about how I looked or anything. And now people just know me as like that bodybuilding guy. Like but you can change. You can do what you can go from being, like I did, from bodybuilder to powerlifter to bodybuilder. You can go from being unhappy and unfulfilled in life to being fulfilled. You can go from being sad and fat and out of shape to being a dynamo and whatever you want to be. You can. Anyone can. Like God knows. I mean, I wish cameras were around when I was a kid, like as freely as they are now. Like camera phones and stuff. I would have loved to have shown you guys what I looked like when I was like 17, 18. I was a mess. So to look like what I do now, again, it's just a case of those executable habits for long enough that it becomes who you are. I couldn't imagine not going to the gym at 6 o'clock now. That's how my life is, because everything is adapted to that. I couldn't imagine not eating the meals. I'll tell you a funny story actually before I pass it back over to you.
Sure.
I remember it was something like 2004, really early on into my journey, and I wanted to start La McDonald's RFL. So I asked my mum, because I was working at the time. I was at university at the time. I was home for summer, and I was working a job at a local sort of department store. And I asked my mum to make me some lunch, because I said, "Look, can you make? I just want really plain chicken and vegetables, because that's on the plan, right?" And she made it with all the love and care of a woman who loves her child, right? But because my taste buds were so desensitized to good food, I opened it up at lunch and I almost burst out in tears because I was like, what have I done to upset my mum? Because this tastes horrible. But actually, it was me. It was my taste buds. So, but, eventually, over many years later, and trust me, it was a lovely meal. Like it was spiced and salt and everything. But at the time, my taste buds were so horrendous. Now, but nowadays, I could have the same meal and it will taste absolutely delicious because I've transformed myself. I've embodied that via a series of daily executable habits. And that's, I think, again, I just think that's the key.
Yeah, man. I'll try to comment minimally just for our last time here. Or last time, but yeah, the first of the people just viewing you a certain way, like, imagine what that's like for me. Like, just a lot of people, to them, I was like this, like hipster that like to drink beer and don't really like, what else? What else is there to say about me? Oh, I was a little bit funny, I guess, but nothing related to what I do now at all. And yeah, I think I can see about you, like, I understand you had the strength background and where you've ended up now, but for me it's easy to see that you, of course, all of that stuff. um yeah, and about the taste buds and that, it's of course something that gradually can change as you stick to the diet. But fasting, as I know we've done, that we're unfortunately not going to have too much time to get into now, but that's really something that changed that very quickly for me. It's insane, actually. There is a scientific explanation for that as well. But I guess something that I personally would like to know even more about is that, I think all of that is great. Yeah, that was one thing. I also do it that way. Like, since we're not working, mainly, I mean, maybe you do some with someone that would compete, but then it's a different thing because it's like almost like it's their job sometimes, or like it's as serious so that, well, you're going to have to prioritize this no matter what. But for many people, it's about combining it with their actual life. So that's also something I want to know, like, how do you work? How do you function? When would it be best for you to do this and stuff? And you accordingly make a plan. No, but I guess just how you do coaching could be interesting, just as in, do you have different programs? Like, if you don't want to, you don't have to talk about pricing and stuff, but like, kind of, I just would be interested what it looks like, like, how do you work with people? Do you have different programs like that? You know, it's always, I think with coaching, it's always a thing, like, there's always a part of just trust. You have to trust that, well, Faz, I just see from his personality and the knowledge he has that he's the guy that can help me. But sort of, if you put it on the menu, like, what is it that you give people?
So I offer a range of things because as I've learned over the years, people have different needs,
Mm.
different budgets, but also different needs. I think some people really, well, most people that I have on my roster or my one-to-one sort of premium clients, they've got me on a messenger app. We do a check-in every week. I completely tailor their plan. They get a video from me every Tuesday if they whether they like it or not, and they also have access to
Mhm.
me via that. Everything's done, so I'm their guy for everything. Now, that's the majority of my roster, but I've also realized there are other options for people who don't want something quite as intensive as that. So I offer a second tier, which is what I call my group coaching. But it's not really like we're all in a group together. It's more just the case of how I deliver the information. So it's basically a
Mhm.
lower cost, but also it relies on them being a bit more independent to get my help. So if they ask me a question, I'll answer it. Otherwise, I'll leave them alone. And that works for guys who are a little bit more independent. A lot of guys who I've got on the one-to-one premium tier will drop down to the group and they'll just sit in the group for, however long, year, 2 years, whatever, just because they like the community aspect. And also it's that
Mhm.
light touch. I'm there if they need me, but otherwise I don't have to be. So a couple of different tiers. They're down from that. I actually do also, breaking news for you, I actually also do have an app out soon. Similar,
Cool.
similar app, very similar. So that will be my next tier, which will essentially be an AI type of app. And then, as well as that, I also have regular contact with some people who will do consultations, say every 6 months. So one of my
Mm.
guys, he lives out in Thailand, retired guy, and essentially he just wants to talk with me every roughly 6 months to get me a plan, get him on track. So he'll do consultations, which is more of like a ad hoc kind of basis. Also, some guys who just do custom workouts every 12 weeks or every 24 weeks. So generally speaking, like I have a range of different ways that people can access me, my knowledge, my expertise, just to get them on track. The most popular is still the one-to-one, just working with me one-to-one. But for some guys, that can be cost prohibitive. So there are other
Yeah.
options, or they just don't like the intensive nature. I mean, I know what it's like. I've been coached before. I don't always like the daily, like in your face, weekly, every week kind of thing. So
Yeah.
nice to have a bit more relaxed, So like if I was to get a coach again, I'd probably have something on a bit more of a relaxed basis where I can consult him when I want to, and he's there if I need him, but equally he's not there. So some weeks might be very busy, then I might not say anything to him for a few weeks. That's okay as well. But it's so different ways really. But for every client, they get their training, their diet, their cardio recommendations tailored to them. So none of it is generic. I don't believe in generic stuff. I think the when it comes to generic plans, I think, you know what I think about this, Leo? I think, because I know guys who do this, I think your work is a representation of like who you are in the industry and your longevity. I think it can be easy to give people generic plans. You can get a load out. If you're good at advertising, you take your top off, show your six pack, whatever it is, you can send off a lot of generic plans. But ultimately, I don't think that has, from what I've seen in the industry from people who I know around here, mostly PTs around here, that doesn't have a lot of longevity. So I've always taken the painstaking step towards individualizing people's routines, no matter what they are, what level of service there is, because that's always a stamp of Faz. And I think you have more longevity. So like, my popularity is slowly increased over time and steadily, and it built up with what I think is a good reputation. And I think that's because the genuine work that I put in. It's a lot harder to do it that way, but ultimately I think it has more longevity. Like I'm not planning on going anywhere. I want to be in this industry for a while. So yeah.
Yeah, man, that's all very interesting. It's not all that different from how I do things, but it still gives me some ideas of maybe where to take things in the future. And I agree with that last part for sure. It's like you can have some like generic starting points, like let's say, a 3 full body per week or something, but then exactly what that looks like within that, it can be a little bit different. And I have certain like meal plans, like I know certain fasting routines or intermittent fasting routines might, it's often not something completely different people have to do. So you can have these like starting points and then individualize from that.
Exactly.
Yeah. What was it? Was one question about this I was thinking about. I guess, I mean, we can start rounding off. I'm just trying to see if I can remember what it was. Yeah. About the intensity of the one-on-one. It's funny because I'm that way that I like to talk to people, whether I'm the coach or the coachee. I find it interesting, But I notice that sometimes too, that even some people that want my like higher tier program, I realize at some point, like, this person thinks I'm kind of intense because they're used to watching me on YouTube and relax and don't have to talk to me and sit and look at me. So
Yeah.
sometimes like, should I do something in the middle of these? Because personally, I would just find it very cool to talk to the person.
I mean, I'm happy to talk you, off air. I'm happy to talk you through options and stuff. Like, feel free to pick my brain because I think I think you would enjoy creating a community of your guys all together.
Yeah,
And I think that'd be kind of fun. I also you get to talk on that too. Like I talk in the group all the time. I'll do Q&A videos up to 3 times a week for the guys. I'll be in comments. We'll talk about stuff like we talked about the Rock's recent transformation and just like random stuff. I think you'd really enjoy it. Like, feel free to we're off air and stuff.
yeah.
No problem.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I probably pick you up on that. What I've been thinking is some of the stuff I do on YouTube that doesn't really I don't like to think that way, but it just doesn't generate enough for me, and especially compared to the time it takes. I've realized that I probably have to, I always put out free videos, of course, but the live streams, certain Q&A stuff, maybe move that to a sort of community thing. I think that would be great. So.
Yeah, you know what sucks, man? It's like I like the Q&As and people, the ones who watch them like them, but dude, they perform terribly. Like no one watches them, So like if I do a video, if I do a Q&A video, it might get a third of the views of anything else. So that, as much as people say they like them, that tells me no one's watching them. So
Mm,
it sucks. I've recently opened up the members section to my YouTube channel as like another low cost way of people just to get their questions answered. Because again, you can't keep up with everything on YouTube, for a proper answer. So what I
yeah.
do is if people are genuinely interested and they pay the money, so they go past, it's a small amount, it's like £5 a month. They go past the barrier of them being just trolls and asking leading baiting questions and they're genuine, and so I have a small amount of people in there. I do a monthly Q&A, and then I also narrate over my own training personal videos, so that's for
Mm.
them. So maybe that's something you could do. Maybe just open up your YouTube membership.
Yeah, man. You mentioned many things I've been thinking about. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is interesting. I'll sit on this for a while, and I'll probably pick you up on that and ask you a bit more directly off the
More,
air. I
more than
appreciate
fine.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like I think sometimes even when you want to give a lot for free, actually putting some things behind a paywall, even if it's like at a low cost, you still like kind of get away the less serious people and get people that actually take a more active interest like that, because that's what you notice, and that's something we could have talked about, but it's a big subject. But a lot of people, they just want to consume. It's like they're even too lazy. Honestly, that's what it is. Too lazy to even like ask a question, because it's like just you talk, just keep it coming, just post a video, I'll just watch, So when you have to people have to take a step to get to that level, even you kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? When see.
They're sort of monetarily committed at that stage.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. There's a certain level of commitment. Like for example, with any advice you give, if somebody's paying for your advice, they're going to take it a lot more seriously than if it's free. So I think like the videos are great, but having some opportunities, and again, like for me, the memberships are great because it's literally £5 or £6 a month. It's very affordable. They can come in and they can just. It's very low effort, very low cost, so they can get the questions answered, and it just means that you can have that facility for them. And I think it's a case of, with all my tiers of coaching and services that I provide, it's just a case of providing people with different options for different interests, for different commitments, for different budgets. And yeah, and if they're interested, they're interested. If they're just going to be trolls and stuff, that's fine. They get filtered out. But yeah, it does. I think it's better because I think you'll be more interested as well. I'll tell you one more thing is in the beginning, I used to do updates for my books. And I think that got a little bit tiring because it becomes very unrewarding to work for free when you've got so much stuff to do. And I was getting people saying, when's the next update, Faz? When's the next update? And it's like, it was supposed to be something that I was doing kind of nice and stuff. And it ended up being, I ended up making essentially a grave for myself and it becoming psychologically very difficult to finish the book because to finish like the next version of the book because it just felt like an expectation rather than something that I wanted to do. So it can be tough to do a lot for free, more than like the videos you put out. So these little tiers, they can provide you with motivation to do stuff as well, which I think is important.
Oh yeah, completely. There was filter out. That's the word. I was just literally thinking about what's the word I want here, but like filter. Yes, that's it. No, one last thing I can say is that I realized that I kind of had to learn to be more selfish. And I don't mean that like but you just put myself first a little bit because it's so natural to me. You just want to put it out there, But I noticed that people don't always appreciate it then. So I feel like often in my life, whether on YouTube and stuff, I often have to kind of teach people to appreciate me. It's like, okay, I guess didn't quite work out this way. So gotta put some paywalls here. Like you didn't value it. Well, I'm gonna force you to value it. Unfortunately, that's just how it works.
I think you'd really like having a group. I really think you'd.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time, and even more so now. It's something I've been thinking more about even before our call. So I'll definitely ask you more about that later for sure.
I can show you an insight into if you've got access to Discord. I'll show you an insight into mine. I'll let you log onto for an hour and just have a look at what I've got. But I love my group. The guys are great. Interaction's fantastic. It's a great community. So yeah, man, definitely.
One question about that, really quick: do you run it completely by your own, or do you have like a moderator or like?
So at the moment on my own, but like if there's more people in there, I think what I will do is try and get some help. Like so, for example, there was a young lady who wanted to get into the fitness industry, and she asked if she could help me a few years ago. Now I never took her up on the offer because I wasn't that busy back then, but she would be someone that I can maybe. Some of my clients are like online coaches or PTs, and I know they want to get more exposure. So if like eventually, just my goal eventually is actually to hire a number of other coaches to work underneath me to as online coaches to do. Yeah, I mean, it would be very clear. Like, it'd be obvious you're getting coaching from John, not from me. But like having those guys on board to help me with the group, maybe to offload some coaching that I had extra leads that month, for example, like stuff like that. So ultimately, yeah, I'd like to build a team around me of people who we could just offer a better service for everyone. I think that'd be cool. But yeah, at the moment, it's not big enough where I need managing, but eventually it will be. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like in general, still I can also manage stuff on my own, but when you're a one-man show, sort of, it's like you do so much yourself already. It's like, here are all these other more things I'm supposed to do. So
sometimes it can just be nice psychologically, not even that they save that much time. Like I've got a guy who does my thumbnails and also edits my videos. It's just nice psychologically, Theo. Like I've just hand it off to them. I record what I record, hand it off to them, and psychologically, it's like, okay, cool, that's one thing done. It's a big thing, and it's done. So it's worth paying the money. It's just having it done sometimes. Yeah. Like hiring people, paying the money to make more money, or to provide a better service, or to get a bigger, brand. I think it's a good way to look at things.
Yeah, for sure. So, man, I love this conversation. Like, I would have liked to talk more about this and training just as it is also. But That's the thing. I noticed this is something I do generally. Like I want to fit everything. You just in this thing, like let's get everything in here. But if we're gonna get everything in one podcast, we're probably here for like at least twice as long. So, and I think I mean, you already have so much like more straight training content. So I like the focus of the podcast still. We've got some of the training stuff and coaching here at the end. But yeah, man, before we go, where can people find you? Anything else you want to plug or?
I think just before I say that, just thank you, Theo, for inviting me on again. I really do enjoy our talks. Yeah, Theo is a great guy, and for anyone, I'm sure your audience know that. But yeah, I really do like our interactions and everything. Yeah, genuinely. So thank you. But
Likewise, brother.
appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. In terms of where people can find me, I think YouTube is probably the best place. I am being a little bit more active on Instagram, but generally YouTube is the best place to find me. I always have a contact form in my description, so if you want to get in contact for coaching, just drop me a line. We can talk about options. It's non-committal. You can feel free to drop me a line and just inquire about what's available. Because like I said, there's lots of ways to work with me. Other than that, yeah, Instagram. I usually do clients testimonials on Instagram, as well as occasionally reels. I'm trying to get into doing more live reels. But those are the main places, really. I have my website, but really it's just mostly a library of my products and things. There's a contact form there if you want to get in touch with me. But yeah, feel free to get in touch. And if you like what you see, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Faz Lifts. And yeah, no, thank you for everything. Yeah.
Well, thank you as well, man. And actually, one thing I wanted to get in earlier that I can say here at the end is speaking of this with hyper-independence and friendships and checking in and stuff. I've appreciated that you checked in on me a little bit. And I'll ask you here again, please, I appreciate that a lot. So if you ever see me be a little quiet or something, I'd be happy to receive a message and I'll check in with you every once in a while as well. Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you for this time. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.